Italy in particular, are preparing the city biodiversity indices, which are a clear movement towards the right direction that we must have while we continue to talk at the global level when we go to Montreal and Bonn about the global biodiversity framework and so on. But what we need is a local biodiversity strategy and action plan, and where you people can play a very important role, because all plans will go through you and you can just tap and see whether we are looking at forest, environment, biodiversity, wildlife, and not to say that urban wildlife, and I'm talking of monkeys, is a big issue on that. And everybody is looking into that and how our cities are looking into that. And obviously in this context, raising awareness becomes very, very important. Raising awareness of the political bosses, of the administrative bosses, everybody. I feel sometimes that our children are more sensitized than our adults. Our youths are still not completely aligned that the nature conservation is very, very important. And we must not forget that what was our experience during the COVID. When we got a little respite, you could see how nature was coming back. You must have seen those pictures of animals being sighted and everything moving along that. The very important thing which we were able to do is to connect, that there is a strong connect between human health and biodiversity. See, frankly, when does one take action? Not when you just read a document, but when you are affected by it. And that is what the COVID, not that it was good and it should happen, but it raised that consciousness that if you continue to mess with nature, then you are going to have these implications on that. So therefore today, when we are looking at planning, 3 or 4 big words are there. We need to see that how these big words are translated into action. We need to look at climate resilience. We need to move towards a low carbon economy. It could be cutting down on emissions. It could be afforestation. It could be electric vehicles also. So these are some of those things which affect the various aspects of our development. Because ultimately when we talk of sustainable urban development and sustainable cities, then all these things will become very, very important. And I noted that in your 3-day plan, you have at the end on the 3rd day, you would be preparing a white paper. And therefore, when my colleague Sejal talked to me about that, I said, look, this is what we need. It's not, you guys are fortunate that you have been able to come and attend this workshop. There would be many, you have a 9,000 strong membership, which may not be exposed to whatever we are discussing in the next 3 days. But I am very sure that this dialogue which we have initiated now, which will continue for the next 2 days, and ultimately culminate into a draft or a white paper, will be able to pick up these threads and to say that what matters most and how do we need to plan, how do we need to approve, and you might have some different roles. There could be a conservation function, there could be a regulatory function, in whatever capacity you are. And lastly, I would say, as a citizen, are we not entitled to clean air and clean water and all those things that go around that? And therefore, this initiative of yours, Dipankar and Kushashi, is very, very important that we must set out. I won't even say that we can't undo what has happened. You can. See, nature also recovers very fast. You give a little steps on that, you do some things for soil and water conservation, and immediately it reverts back. You can see what happens just after the first rains touch. Immediately the entire environment changes on that. So with these few words, I would say that I would again compliment WWF and ITPI for organizing this, and I hope that the 2 days you are going to be here will be very productive. And through you, we should be able to expand the need for doing that. And I would again repeat that Vyatha is the clear description. अभी तो व्यथा है हमारी. इस व्यथा को हम कैसे दूर कर पाएंगे और हमारे को क्या क्या स्टेप लेने हैं. If we are able to say a few steps, I think it will be a job well done. Thank you very much for providing this opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind words, and also the need why we need all these to be as an integrated manner. Very prominent examples from ongoing world issues and challenges. Thank you very much. So going forward, we have a presentation from Dr. Dipankar Ghosh, the Senior Director of Biodiversity Conservation in WWF-India. With this, I'd like to request you to please proceed ahead there, because we have some presentations here. We have online participants as well who are doing this program remotely. We would like to make sure that we will be best possibly utilizing our resources to make everyone happy with these presentations ongoing. So I'd like to hand over this to Dr. Ghosh. Sir, please take it away.
Namaskar and good morning. How are you today? Some of you have reached very late, I understand. Sorry about any challenges. So welcome, and as Dr. Mathur was saying, it's a dream coming true. Yes. Welcome, sir. We welcome Mr. Srivastava. My name is Dipankar. I am a senior director with WWF, more than 2 decades in the organization. I am an ecologist. In the 90s, when I started my PhD work, it was a Government of India sponsored project, and I was working in Northeast. Went straight from Bengal to Mizoram and Nagaland. Parents were worried is that where am I going to be and what am I going to eat, and staying with the headhunters and stuff. You know, the most interesting part of that is that while I was trying to study a game bird, tragopans, I was also trying to see the development which was happening. Mizoram had just come out of conflict, and conflict which was unthinkable. Some of the seniors would remember what kind of conflict happened in Mizoram in the late 80s and 90s. Bloodbath and stuff. Nagaland, there was conflict happening, and Manipur, it was happening. One thing everybody said, we need good road network. We need development to happen in these northeastern states, connected with the chicken snake. You know, you found the mention of chicken snake very recently when the Indo-Pakistan conflict was going on. Now, in all this while, some people in Northeast, political leaders across the party line, Northeast India, it's controversial at times, ILP, inner line permit. Even a government officer has to get an inner line permit and then enter a state. So the idea is to maintain that fabric, and fabric is not for people, it's also for culture, it's also for the ecosystem. So what are we doing? You know, sometimes I would say about 15 or maybe 20 years back when Dr. Mathur, he is the pioneer, and thank you so much, sir, for coming here, and my sincere thanks to ITPI, Mr. Patel, who is not here, Mr. Kulshrestha, for this partnership. 20 years back when we started identifying what are the challenges for conservation, what are the challenges for even large mammals like elephants or tigers or leopards, which is a very, very adaptive animal. Leopards can thrive in the premises of this place. They are so adaptive for a few days. But at some point of time, when you construct a building and put a 12 feet high wall around it, the habitat is gone and we are putting a barrier to that. Now we as ecologists, when we say that, well, You can't construct that building, but on the other hand, when you go home and the family says that, beta, अब तो शादी वादी हो गया भाई, अपना घर से निकलो और खुद का घर बनाओ, कुछ करो, then you need something, right? So we need development, but where is the balance? So I think this whole partnership is towards creating that balance, which our political leaders, our decision makers have been always saying, is that we need this balance. So how do we get this balance? So the idea is to just talk to, I'm not here to give a presentation, but get into more of a discussion, or rather setting the context, is that where can we join hands together with ITPI? There are colleagues in Delhi whom we know and have been working for some time, but in different areas. I was talking to you, Rajeshji, is that in Kerala, how can we work together so that everybody remembers why not, so that we can stop a future why not kind of situation? You know, what can we do more? So essentially, what is why are we bothered? There is this international body called IPBES. But before that, some of you might have read about the Dasgupta report or the Dasgupta review, which came out a couple of years back, 4 years back. In fact, when COVID was going on, people were referring to Dasgupta report. That report said this, is that we are getting into COVID, which is now identified as a zoonotic disease, because the barriers are going. Barriers between human habitations and barriers between where the disease reservoirs are going. So because biodiversity is declining at a faster rate. And then same thing was reiterated by IPBES about 2 years back in, I think, 2023, which said that more than 1 million species, 10 lakh plus species, are at the risk of extinction. And then WWF internationally, along with Zoological Society of London and few others, and all those are available online free of cost. If you need the detailed reports, we can email it to you, or if ITPI has a Google Drive or a SharePoint, we can upload those information so that you can have a look at these. We come up with a report every 2 years, which is called the Living Planet Report. Has anybody heard a Living Planet Report? Anyone? No, okay. Please try and have a look. It is scary. We have only one living planet, but it is scary, believe me. These are 2018 data. I was scared to put up the 2022 data, or rather 2024 data. It says that 69% of average species populations, and these are mammals and fish, and mostly vertebrates, 5,230 species which are monitored, global decline is about 70%. And 2024, you can yourself see, it's more than 3/4 of species are at decline. What will happen if there are no leopards in Rajaji? We will see. Herbivores will increase. I see sir is nodding. What will happen if there are no insects, there are no pollinators, no breakfast, no lunch, nothing? Because that's where we are trying to, that's where we are heading to. 1990 I first came to Dehradun, took a bus from Delhi, came with my parents from Calcutta, we took a train to Delhi and then we took a bus. And I remember the bus, it was a morning bus, a daytime bus. When we were driving, it used to take many hours. We stopped somewhere at Khatauli for breakfast and then stopped somewhere for lunch, and we arrived in Dehradun very late. The bus driver, every now and then, would go out and would wipe the screen. Why? There are insects getting splashed on the screen. Why? It was passing through forested areas, it was passing through agriculture fields, it was passing through areas, and you know it better, where you have insects, which have got flowering plants, of crops. 1997-98, I used to be a frequent visitor to Wildlife Institute of India, which was headed by Dr. Mathu till very recently. We started driving, taking cabs or driving with friends' cars. Insects were still there. Last to last weekend, I drove myself. No, zero insect to splash, believe me. Yes. Left from Delhi at 5 o'clock in the morning, 9:30 I was having breakfast and there was 9:30, 10 o'clock we were having breakfast and there was zero insect splash, nothing. It rained in between, it was nice weather 2 weeks back, everything was fine, no insect. Is it good? Is it bad? We don't know. We need your help to change this. Why is it happening? Is it only about land use planning? Is it only because the roads are not passing through insect-ridden areas? Or have we started using so much insecticides that we don't know about this, that we have depleted all those? And it's not about us. Our lifetime we might not see a danger. We did see a havoc in COVID, but we might see our future generations, the younger colleagues here. Let's not leave a bad planet. I mean, these are really, really scary. So what is the solution? What do we, and not just us, but our seniors, and one person, if I may take his name, and of course he was a colleague for Dr. Mathur, Dr. A.J.T. Johnson, many decades back, he started this phrase called landscape conservation in the country, along with many others and Dr. Mathur and others. It says that large mammals, when you talk about an animal, when we talk about conservation, if we say that, oh, I conserve honeybees, maybe some people will get interested and some people will move on. The moment we say, well, I work on elephants, people will say, oh, okay, it connect. When you say, I work on wasps, people will probably say, no, I don't want to talk to you. So we started working on large mammal conservation. Why? Because the idea at that point of time, about 25 years back, or even before, more than 50 years back, when Project Tiger started, is that these are umbrella species. A tiger is an umbrella species. You conserve the tiger in an ecosystem, you conserve all other species which are in that ecosystem. So what do we work on? We started with protected areas, and then in this whole landscape conservation. I'll quickly tell you what exactly happens. But before that, why are we again increasingly getting more active and trying to get into these collaborations? And not to scare you, is that the first one was this problem of species declining. But on the other hand, when we look at development, here is the development figure. Last year, we had colleagues from Government of United States of America in Delhi. And I gave them some data. They fell off their chair, literally so. And some of you were there in the meeting. I think Anil was there. US government, with all their might and stuff, spent about $62 billion for road construction in 1 year, I think FY 2022. Government of India with NHAI, NHIDCL, just these two entities spent $32 billion in 1 year. This gentleman said, oh my God, so India is not a third world country. I said, no ma'am, it's not a third world country. The investment on infrastructure is going phenomenal. And why we are again coming back to you again and again is that roads will come up to connect. If these 4 tables are 4 developing centers, residential centers or an SEZ, there will be roads here. These chairs will have to be, these little chairs are our islands or forests, they will be removed, there will be roads all over. So how do we manage? There is a directive from Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, and which is almost music to our ears, is that do not construct new roads. I mean, don't do greenfield construction through a protected area or habitats. That's there. But how many times it is going to be followed? Because land acquisition, we know in this country, land acquisition is a challenge, and price and the cost associated with it. Private sector installment, on the other hand, is getting stalled, and that's what is a worry for the government. We are discussing this with very senior NITI Aayog members and advisors, and they were saying that this will actually be a problem because private sector investment going down means that there will be less private sector investment happening in future. People will do their risk assessment. So how does one de-risk it? The idea is also to de-risk investment. As planners, as conservationists, we don't want projects to stall, we want projects to happen with appropriate safeguards. Stalling a project is not good for the country. So what safeguards can we bring in together and from the very beginning? That's the idea. This was a study which was done by many scientists a few years back. 2023 it was published. It identified what are the areas which are, sorry, the light is not working. So it identified the priority sites of the country where one has to conserve species, and species not just animals but both flora and fauna. If you see, the areas are mostly, quite a lot of areas in central India, in the Tarai. So usually in the conservation landscapes where we talk about conservation, not just the Kazirangas and Corbettes of India, or the Rajajis of India, but also the areas around it. And why the areas around the tiger reserves are important, why the areas around the national parks are important, I'll come to that. What does landscape conservation do? Why do we, and then I give my card and this gentleman say, oh, landscape, great, fine. I'll give my wife your number, can you please help her? I said, for what? He said, no, our garden needs to be properly landscaped. I said, well, this is not landscaping, but this is a broader landscape. This is a landscape where you and I live, where you and I need to go and stay. So it's about metapopulation of animals. Landscape generally looks at metapopulations and just touching the basics so that you know where we are coming from. Tomorrow when you go to the field and you see a tiger, and when, I'm sure Bhupanda, I can find him here, or Anil, they will be talking very passionately about how they have got tigers from Corbett to Rajaji with a radio collar and release them, and what the tiger is doing now, they can show you on their computer, it's fitted with a radio collar. Why are we doing it? Is it for fun? That we like catching tigers and bringing them from one place to another? No! We want tigers to live in a landscape, and one landscape where the population is getting depleted. In that metapopulation, we need to bring tigers from one place to another. So it's a large landscape where metapopulation can thrive on its own. It should work beyond the boundaries of protected areas. The Corbettes and Rajajis will be protected. There is a protected area authority, there are field directors, there is a budget allocated. But what does a tiger do when it comes out of Corbett? The first thing it will hit is the city of Ramnagar with all those buses and the tourists trying to see a tiger. And then if it crosses Ramnagar, it enters in Bijnor and all the sugar factories and sugar mills. What happens then? We will turn it, and somebody was saying that we will turn it as human-animal conflict, but it's not conflict. I think you are saying it has to be coexistence, because we have borrowed those land from those tigers. And now, because we are superior, we think we are superior human beings, we said, okay, the tiger has come to our land, so it is conflict. Well, it's very nice to say this in a closed room, but just now the door opens and a tiger comes in, it will be conflict, right? But that's exactly what's happening. How do we manage it? How do we plan it better? If the plan is already done, then the sugar mill has been constructed on a corridor which has been used by tigers or elephants, then we can't do much. It's in your hands. If you are planning something and you see, and if we can give you that information that you need, that these are the corridors, you know the protected areas, right? In Tiruvandra, you know what is Periyar. But where is Wayanad, or where is Parambikulam, and what is the corridor? If we can give you the shape files, if we can help you with that, I think that's where is the win-win factor. So landscape conservation is beyond boundaries. It also helps in recovery of species. Manas Tiger Reserve, which is in Assam, lost all its rhinos from armed conflict and poaching before the onset of this century. And the Assam government started a mega project with many partners. WWF was one of them. And we started bringing rhinos from Kaziranga with our Manas. Manas now has more than 40 rhinos. They are staying here. The idea was to make Manas a protected area with rhinos, where rhinos could naturally come in. They are not able to do that. But what is happening, yes, exactly. This is Dehradun from the aircraft. That's Dehradun town on the other side, and this is where I'm not sure if we still have some bit of Dehradun basmati rice agriculture fields. This picture is few years old, and my colleague, you will meet her, Sejal, who has she almost has times in this picture, and Sejal says that now this mosaic of agriculture field is almost gone. You mostly have houses. People from Delhi and other areas, they've bought land and stuff. So the corridors are going, okay, and insects are gone almost. So again, I'm talking about those pollinators. Let's think about it. Is that what are the spaces that we can keep? What are the relevances? We need buy-in of local people, and when I say local people, not just the villagers, but all stakeholders, all the way from decision makers and politicians to the businessmen. We have to get their buy-in. I've talked about biodiversity outside protected areas. It also focuses on large space. I think all of us, whether conservationists or planners, it's always better to work on a bigger canvas, on a bigger slate, so that we have more space to work on. That's something one can work on. Identifying ecological balance and stuff. Again, showing you how things are changing for India. We are a country which has demonstrated how large mammal conservation can be successful. And I have studied fairly well wildlife conservation in different countries. Examples to students at one point of time used to be the grey wolf recovery in Idaho and stuff, but now people are studying about the tiger recovery in India from a population of 1411, and not so long back, about 2006 or so, we now have close to 4,000 tigers. Protection, support from all stakeholders, including all of you, better understanding, better management, we have so many tigers. But what is happening as a result of that? This is from Central India, from the last All India Tiger Estimation. This is a Government of India map published by the NTCA, National Tiger Conservation Authority, together with Wildlife Institute of India and the states. Is that tigers are not just within the protected areas. The dark green polygons, those are the protected areas. The occupancy of tigers have increased. They are going through agriculture fields, they are going through industrial corridors, they are along the canals, they are in small reserve forests, and I was discussing with Kulshresthaji in the morning, Bhopal has become a city of tigers now. Bhopal city has got about 28 tigers living. We are supporting a local organization to do a study. All that is less, a good coexistence happening, but what is the threshold that we need to figure out? So this also says that we need to study and understand these kind of coexistence issues much more. Going to the next one, this is a landscape connectivity model, and you will see, if you see the heightened landscape connectivity areas, the red areas, aren't these the areas where we are also proposing for development? North India, primarily Uttarakhand and Uttar Pradesh, in the Tarai, where roads are proposed, SEZs are coming up, a bit in northeast, in Assam, Bengal border, there is a new city coming up, a lot in central India, especially, and also going down to Telangana and Andhra, and along the west coast, Kerala and a bit of Karnataka. A lot of this development will happen, but these developing or future development areas also are overlapping with the future or with the present connectivity of tigers. Now, if I just show you what are the elephant corridors, they are the same. Except for some states in central India, of course, Telangana and Andhra, except at least Telangana now has elephants, Chhattisgarh MP also. Elephant corridors are also the same. So these are the areas where again development is happening. I know Shiv few months back said that can we help, I think it was from Karnataka, there was a request. Maharashtra, we were not ready, but I think we as conservationists and my team, we need to be more proactive and giving you that information and reach out to other like-minded institutions to get the information and provide that information to you. Understanding the priority sites, primarily even if you don't go through all these points, is that map the connectivity, but where WWF and similar organizations can help you is the second point, which is recording multi-year animal movement. Identifying a corridor on a piece of paper is easy, but identifying a corridor on ground, in fact, Dr. Mathur and I, we were driving from Mysore to Nagarhole, or I think Bandipur, and we were saying that the entire area is corridor. But how do we map it? You can show it on a piece of paper, but when you are actually driving, which area do we show that, okay, this is corridor? The entire area is used by elephants, the entire space is used by animals, but I think we need to rationalize. We can't say that this entire area is a corridor and you cannot have any development. What are the safeguards there? What sort of planning should happen there? What are the areas that need to be kept vacant or less development that we need to figure out? So that's why we have been talking about this engagement. I'll just show you some case studies. Few years back, when the then highways minister, who is still the North minister, and Dr. Mathur has got more anecdotes about the discussions. In one of the discussions, he was in our office and he was saying that you wildlife people, you are talking about spending crores and crores of rupees for an overpass under which animals will go in a country which doesn't have enough money to feed our people. How are you saying this? Our response was, sir, if you do that, that's a long-term solution, there are engineering solutions, but it will also protect the ecosystem, it will also help the national anthem. This was the flyover he was talking about. And today, he is the champion, if I am not wrong. He is saying that go and see this corridor, go and see this elevated highway along the Kanha Pinch corridor, in H7, I think the number has changed. This is in the Maharashtra part, in H7, and tigers are crossing. So we are not banking on any examples from Nevada or Australia or Kenya. India now has a make in India example. Corridors identified by ecologists, construction, overpasses constructed by the engineers, and again monitored, tiger movement monitored by ecologists, and then again picked up by the decision makers, the highest level of decision makers in the country. So this is a win-win case study. A similar thing happening through Rajaji Tiger Reserve. My colleague Anil who just walked in. Rajaji used to have many elephant deaths on the railway tracks. Anil, in his previous avatar in a different organization, started walking along the railway track, following elephants, and started seeing why elephants are crossing. Figured out that one point was water. He will talk more. I am not going to steal the steam out of his presentation. Water and food. So if we can provide alternative water sources, if we can provide, again, it's all about land use, to the elephants on either sides of the railway track and inform the railways, especially the motormen, on elephant movement, that helps. Elephant deaths went to zero for a few years. Last couple of years we have seen some more elephant deaths. Maybe many factors are involved and we are trying to resolve the matter. Closure of traffic, this is a classic example from Tamil Nadu, Karnataka border. It's debated, there are discussions that it might be taken out, traffic has to move through the Ghat section. But again, can we do a slightly better land use planning here? Are there alternative sites there? But that's where we need some solutions. Color corridor, this is one of the tiny corridors which is there, very close to Satyamangalam. If one drives from Coimbatore to Uti, one passes through this. It's getting choked, lot of resorts, lot of industries, ashrams, everything coming up. So the discussion that we had with NHI and with the state, with the Chief Secretary level, and even it went to the Honorable Chief Minister, is to have a corridor, an elevated highway for vehicles where the animals can cross. Pilibhit Tiger Reserve, again expansion of railway, where we are trying to work with the forest department. And what comes up in all these slides is the time, the essence of time. I'll come to that. This is again Lamding Elephant Reserve, where a road was passing through and it was getting expanded. Culverts were constructed and more bridges were constructed, where one thought that elephants would cross through under those bridges, but they were just culverts, not even as wide as this room. But then again, when we started working with the government, got designers from PWD and irrigation department and suggested for animal underpasses, they were installed and now elephants are using these areas. So the idea is, before I come to this, the idea is about timely intervention, and please discuss that tomorrow when you are in the field, today sometime and day after, is that the white paper should say what are the engagement points. If sir, as the Chief Town and Planning Officer here, if you have an idea, sir, is that this is something that we need to develop. At that point of time, if we can provide you some information, okay, these are the areas where we need to protect the forest. It might not be a corporate, it might be a tiny reserve forest. I think we will have a win-win situation there. So idea is that how do we engage? What is the right time of engagement from the very beginning? The moment we have a thought, I think we should collaborate. And same thing for us. If we have some concerns that we started this whole One Health concept way back in 2017, 2018, even before COVID hit us. The idea is, I go back to my insect splash story. There has to be better human health, there has to be better animal health, and there has to be better ecosystem health. We don't work on human health. There are many people who are working on human health. A lot of apps are available to tell you about better human health. But if we can do something for better ecosystem health, I think that's where will help us. Just to give you a small example how it can work, a patient in Kenya, a small boy from a very, very nice family, was detected with continuous tummy pain, continuous abdominal pain. 7 years old, healthy boy. And when he was hospitalized, after many investigations, they did the usual investigations about the stomach problem. They figured out that he was suffering from tuberculosis, stomach tuberculosis, or rather duodenal tuberculosis, which is very, very rare. And then they identified that it was bovine tuberculosis. The little boy contracted bovine tuberculosis somewhere. So it's not the COVID vaccine or H1N1 or avian flu. Yesterday's newspapers showed that a couple of tigers have died in Uttar Pradesh from avian flu, which was not, avian flu was supposed to infect only birds and some mammals, but tigers dying of avian flu was not hard much. So things are changing. With climate change, with rapid global warming, with this pollution, what is happening, nobody knows. Yesterday's Times of India had a story, and if you can get a copy, please do read. It talks about effects of COVID. Medical theory is saying that COVID is probably not gone. I mean, we are getting better adapted to COVID, but it has left people with challenges, and it has left me with challenge. The idea is, where is One Health approach? I think the planners have the best therapy for One Health approach. If you can plan it in a way where ecosystem health can be maintained, we can't have physical barriers now. But if you can have ecosystem level barriers, which will not allow a disease outbreak to happen from a reservoir population to other population, like from domestic dogs to carnivores or carnivores to domestic dogs. We don't know. Canine distemper virus has not been noted in people, but rabies is a challenge, and rabies can go vice versa between wild carnivores and domestic carnivores. If you can help with creating these ecological barriers between the ecosystems and follow a One Health approach, that would be fantastic. I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you so much.
When I'm speaking today, after my presentation is over, we actually now get into more specifics of what the challenges are there with the planners, what are the challenges with the conservationists. So I'm just trying to bridge this gap and bring them to a point so that we start talking to each other, we start helping each other in this hope of a better world for all of us. My presentation actually is incidental because we are sitting in Dehradun, and therefore I am talking about my challenges and experiences in Dehradun. Not to say that this is good or bad, but these are experiences and these are the challenges and these are the issues which all the cities across would actually be facing. The reason, these two fields really need to be together. The planning and conservation, actually they need to go hand in hand. Is apart from whatever Dipankar has very nicely explained, I also feel that, and just anecdotal, that I would actually call it like a development bus. Imagine something called a development bus. A bus which has 4 wheels at the rear, which could be economy, which could be, well-being, whatever. There could be so many, they are the drivers really basically which are powering this bus. Without that the bus will not move. But what is steering the bus? There are 2 wheels. The 2 wheels, one is of course planning. That if you don't plan well, this bus may go anywhere else. And second is also conservation and environment. We cannot live without conserving our environment. We cannot live, in an isolated world. That nature is something else, planning is something else. We cannot live in those boundaries. And unfortunately, till now, and that's how we have all been trained, at least people from my generation and people who are senior to me. We were trained, we were never taught, told that these things have to move together. It's only recently that we started to actually appreciate the value of everything coming together. And that is where both the tires, both the front wheels of the bus, the development bus, they actually need to steer together. And therefore they need to work together, and only then we'll be able to reach where we really want to go. Like as a planner, I know that we all work in our jurisdictions. We have our jurisdiction. I'm an urban planner, so I work within this planning boundary. I'm a regional planner, I look at something else. Or I'm a planner in the development authority, I look at enforcement. So this is my scope. Now, the nature or the environment, again, doesn't really believe in these boundaries. You remove don't do anything in the cities, and the nature will take over. Why? Because for nature, everything is still connected, we're still together. It's just that if we are sitting here in this room, doesn't mean that our water is also coming from this room. The water is coming from somewhere away. And why? How is that water? How are we getting the water? Now normally engineers would say, हम वहाँ से pump करते हैं, यहाँ से लेके आते हैं. That is fine, but what is the source of water? How do we ensure for our human well-being? And I think I'm just spinning this whole argument towards the well-being of human beings, right? That's what, as a planner, our mandate is that we have to take care of all the people. We have to provide equitable resources. We have to provide, actually have judicial extraction of whatever we're taking from nature. It cannot be random, it cannot be arbitrary, it cannot be ad hoc. So if we are in this room, we need water, the population is growing. We cannot say, okay, stop the population, population growth. But then the water is required. The water is actually coming from rivers, or we are extracting water from the ground. Now these sources also are not unlimited. As we know, some places in Delhi, Gurgaon, and certain areas where the groundwater actually has gone down to about 600, 700 feet. What are we doing about that? Think about air pollution. Think about oxygen. So all these things, we cannot exist if everything became cities, everything became concrete. Dr. Martha pointed out that we have fancy for something, for concretizing everything. If we do all that, where do we get the resources which are important for us to live? हमें भी तो जिंदा रहना है. हमारे लिए oxygen, हमारे लिए पानी, हमारे लिए food supply, वो कहाँ से आएंगे? Dipankar talked about insects. So insects are required for the food security. So ये सब चीजें अपने आप नहीं बनेंगी, and we have to, and as a planner, when we are looking at sustainable development, or when we are looking at actually providing for the developing population, we need to take care of this also. So somewhere we need to break those silos and actually say that, okay, my jurisdiction legally or as per my job description is so and so. But then we have to still be sensitive to the fact that हम लोग जो भी करेंगे उसका impact बाहर जाएगा, और बाहर जो होगा उसका impact हमारे ऊपर आएगा. We have to take care of both the sides. Even if we cannot do something directly, even if we are sensitive to the whole idea of this being a connected world, connected ecosystem, I think half the battle is won. We will be more sensitive that even when we are planning for a road, when we are planning for a development or a new city or whatever, we can be more conscious of the fact that we would eventually be leading to a better ecosystem. One of the stories which Dipankar I wanted to say, and he has already talked about it, was एक leopard या एक tiger अगर flagship species नहीं होगी तो क्या होगा? And a lot of times people have actually asked me, and that also includes planners and engineers. हम तो अपने शहर को बना रहे हैं, लेकिन अगर एक टाइगर नहीं भी होगा वो फॉरेस्ट वाले देख लेंगे. फॉरेस्ट वाले तो अपने फॉरेस्ट के अंदर देखेंगे, हम क्या करेंगे? और फॉरेस्ट अगर टाइगर नहीं होगा तो टाइगर नहीं होगा तो हर्बीवोर बढ़ जाएंगे, हर्बीवोर बढ़ जाएंगे तो ऑल द जो नीचे का जो अंडरग्रोथ है, लीव्स हैं, वो सब खत्म होने शुरू हो जाएंगे. एंड एज अ रिजल्ट the whole food chain kind of gets disrupted, and because of that, what happens is the tree cover goes down, the forests are dying. The concept of health of the forest really takes a hit, and if that starts to happen, what is going to happen is the earth जिसके ऊपर मिट्टी के ऊपर जिसमें पेड़ लगे हुए हैं, that earth starts getting loose. And फिर हम उसमें रोड बनाएंगे, फिर लैंडस्लाइड आएगी, फ्लडिंग होगी, इरोजन होगा, और ultimately affect कौन हो रहे हैं? We are the ones who are getting affected. वो road collapse होगी, landslide होगा, and you know, and nobody is going to say that this is happening because of some action which was probably taken 50 years back or 20 years back. This is what is happening, and we as planners have the responsibility to take care and actually maintain this ecosystem in such a way that it remains functional for the next generations. And I think that is the power. All the planners in this room, all of you have this power. You know, you can really make that change. You can bring in that the discussion of environment as part of your regular discourse. And the moment you do that, it becomes it's a win-win for all. It becomes everybody's concern. Not just for planners, not just for environmentalists. And Dr. Martin morning that citizens का भी तो कुछ हक है. So it actually starts affect, you know, because they are the ones who are getting affected. If I may be a planner, but at the end of it, I also need water, I also need air, I also need food. And if we don't do something and maybe doing something wrong in our workspace, is going to affect me, my family, my children. So somewhere we have to also start thinking in terms of this not as a, you know, the moment we think of working on environment as something which is required for general good, तो शायद हम लोगों की कहीं पे उसमें कमी आ जाती है. हम बोलते हैं जो जैसे मेरे पास ज़्यादा पैसे होंगे तभी तो दान करूँगा, अगर नहीं होंगे तो मैं सोचूंगा नहीं उसके बारे में. But if I know that my sustenance in my life depends on the fact that unless I do this, I will not be able to live, and that becomes the condition for living, I mean, that kind of sensitivity is something which we really need to bring in. We need to figure out the fact that how should all this discussion become they become mainstream. It has to happen on everything, and therefore I said on the development bus, the two front wheels which are actually steering this bus, one is of course planning and one is definitely environment. The two cannot live without each other, and आगे चल के अभी तक we were probably fortunate, we had enough of natural wealth, natural capital available जिसको हमने दबा के abuse किया है. हम सब ने किया है. लेकिन now the time has come where we are crossing that threshold, and if we don't take care of it now, this bus is actually going to go in a ditch. So we don't want that to happen, and that's not our job profile. We really want this development to happen. We want to develop our states, we want to develop our cities, which becomes good for people who are going to be living there. You know, in example, because I live in Delhi, Gurgaon, so I know that in November, December, you can't breathe in Delhi. You just cannot breathe. November, December, you go from Dehradun or any other place, land in Delhi. The moment the aircraft door opens, suddenly you, even if with your eyes closed, you can make out Delhi aa gaya. No, so that's the kind of, and उस समय हम क्या बोलेंगे ये नेताजी ने ये नहीं किया, इन्होंने वो नहीं किया, पंजाब ने ये कर दिया, वो कर दिया. But that is just shifting the blame. As planners, can we think of doing something else? If we cannot stop the burning of crop, can we provide solutions? Can we in our land use plan? Can we have systems which say, okay, how do we recycle that? Or how do we provide buffers? Or how do we even start providing, you know, urban forest or urban rewilding concepts which are now coming in? We have to start thinking of solutions within ourselves and not say कि ये धुआं जो है पंजाब से आया है, ये धुआं हरियाणा से आया है, अरे अफेक्ट तो हमें कर रहा है, हम क्या करेंगे? मेरे पास ये jurisdiction है, within this jurisdiction, this is what I can do and this is what I need to do to ensure that the effect of all that is happening around me starts getting reduced. You know, he talked about Wayanad, and one of the reports which I read on Wayanad was the floods and all those things, the landslides which happened. Why did it happen? You know, Wayanad was very high on wind energy. I think it still is very high on wind energy. So जो wind turbine इतनी बड़ी बननी थी, which was supposed to be a green solution, उसको लगाने के लिए we actually had to build roads so that trucks could go there and install those large turbines. The moment you start building road, you are cutting down trees, you are destabilizing the slopes. And when it rained, like the way it rained, it all came crashing down. So now somebody may say, we are putting green energy, renewable energy, but then how are we even achieving that target by doing something else? So can we as planners say that, okay, this is required, or this is something which we want to do, but let's find different solutions. You know, we, again as planners, I like to tell everybody that as planners are captain of the ship. हम लोग के पास सब कुछ नहीं होगा, लेकिन हमारे पास वो skill है that we can actually bring everybody together. So if I don't have an engineering solution myself, I know where to look for an engineering solution. If I need to put, how are the wind turbines fixed in a sea? There are a lot of offshore wind farms across the world. वहाँ तो कोई रोड नहीं बनाता, वहाँ कैसे बना रहे हैं? So can we not do such solutions, adopt such solutions in our country? We need to bear the brunt of whatever we've done, and that is what is happening in all the cities. And as I said, planners can actually tap into a lot of research studies which are available, which we can use for and convert it down to hardcore land use plan, zonal guidelines. That's our tool, and that's bring it in the master plan. हमें तो कोई करना है, लेकिन to come down to that whole synthesis of thought can actually be done in multiple steps. IIT Roorkee has recently, Dr. Mahua Chatterjee, she has just developed a system of urban heat stress risk index or something like that, which basically maps the kind of stress urban heat island and other, it's a forecasting system which can even tell you that few years from now this area is going to become hot, or this area is gradually gaining more, it's going to actually become very hot. Either it could be because of environmental reasons, it could be because of the kind of paving surface or use of air conditioning. They have multiple parameters. I think it's a cutting edge, high tech research which they have done, and they will eventually be developing for other cities, and you can roll it out to your particular cities also. My point there is that so we have the kind of tools which are going to tell us where the problem is really going to come up. We are smart enough to be able to we have reached that level where we can start forecasting things also. But the solutions so we know the problem, we have actually gone much ahead on the problem side of it. That we know that this is going to happen, this is going to happen, hum sab jyotish ban gaye, hमें मालूम है this is going to happen. How do you solve it? We are still not there. And fortunately for us, there are very simple solutions which the nature provides us. And that is the second wheel of the development bus. From this system, if you know that, okay, certain areas have extreme heat risk sensitivity, how do we solve it? New York tried to solve it years back by making the Central Park. And if you are walking in New York, none of the streets have trees. They are all, paved, they have buildings. But the central lung of New York is like a forest. It's like a real world forest. And that is what takes care of all the air supply and everything else, the good weather in New York. Of course, there will be critiques also. You're going to say, कि यहाँ हवा भी आती है, ये भी होता है. All those things keep happening. Now let's come back to our Indian situation. Instead of, and again to give an example of landscape, we were talking about landscape versus landscape architecture versus large landscapes. The crucial difference between ecosystem landscapes and actual landscapes is that for landscape architecture or whatever we are doing, it needs a lot of resources. हम लोग शहर पे अपने मास्टर प्लान बनाते हैं, उसमें बीच में ग्रीन करते हैं, कॉमन ग्रीन पार्क एरिया दिस दैट, but understand that these areas require a lot of resources. The kind of plantation that we do, it needs water, it needs manure, it needs people, mali, maintenance, money for years so that it remains well maintained. And the kind of what is it offering us back, except for some visual delight and people who can walk in those parks. Apart from that, we really don't get anything much. Compare this with natural forests, the concept of rewilding, which is becoming important in master planning also. A lot of cities, even San Francisco and so many others. Delhi has also tried that. There are certain areas which are demarcated as urban forest. This new category of urban forest in a city is so important because forest में क्या होगा? Forest में आपको कुछ maintain नहीं करना है. The forest ecosystem thrives on its own. You don't need mali, you don't need manure, you don't need water. You plant native trees, native varieties of whatever flora is there, and it just starts to grow, it starts to thrive itself. It attracts bees, it attracts birds. It becomes the lungs, green lungs for the city. And that is something which all of us as planners can really do it very easily. You know, you have to identify, so let's say we go back to IIT Roorkee, ask them, okay, what are the heat, what are these pockets which are there, which you forecast in, for example, in Dehradun, certain areas are going to become extremely hot. Now, how do I make this less hot? Uske liye, let's identify pockets and say, okay, these are the areas which are then going to become, let's mark them as urban forest. And urban forest ke liye, you don't need specialists, you don't need anything, you just need the traditional vernacular knowledge. आपके यहाँ पे जो पुराने बड़े बुजुर्ग हैं वही बता देंगे कि हमें ये पेड़ लगाओ भाई, ये लगाओ, इसमें कोई पानी नहीं चाहिए, कुछ नहीं चाहिए, and the things will start growing on its own. And उस जंगल के बीच में से, even if you have a nice walking path or you have a cycling track, so people can start using it, they'll enjoy it more. And that also helps in the connectivity of the landscape. You know, from the left side of Dehradun to right side of Dehradun, if we have some kind of a connected path, it need not be a 1 kilometer wide forest, but even if it is small, there are smaller width stretches which kind of connects these two parts together. You will have small mammals like mongoose and so many others which can actually just go around, and that is something which will make the ecosystem more functional. So it's just a small example. So what I'm saying is that all the problems that we have learned so far, the problems that we don't know as of now, has solutions in nature. So, you know, problem hum itna upar pahunch gaye, let's start bringing this nature wala part also up. And the day they meet, I think our problems are going to start. We will be in a situation, much happier situation, where we know that for anything we need to go back to nature. You know, as an architect, sometimes I tell people, and that's just an example, when this whole green building thing started, Indian architectural system, the construction system was always green. हमारे घर मोटे होते थे, वो उसके मिट्टी की दीवारें होती थी, टूट गई, खराब हो गई, फिर उसी मटेरियल को यूज किया, and then we used to build it again. You were talking about the houses and, you know, being so comfortable and cool because our system was such that they were built around the climate. There was no artificial requirement of air conditioning, this, that, light. Nothing was required. So gradually now that, and the green building का concept India में आया, तो क्या हुआ कि we started making these glass buildings, huge glass buildings you see in all the metropolitan towns. And then they say that, okay, this building is green rated 3-star. So first you create a problem of making a glass building, then you increase the amount of air conditioning which goes in that, and then after you've done that, then you start thinking, yeah, air conditioning में तो बहुत बिजली लग रही है, can we go in for a better system of air conditioning? Instead of regular air conditioning, let's go for a VRV air conditioning system, which is going to cut my energy by 50%. Why are we even going there? Why do we need that glass building in the first place at all? So I think questioning the fundamentals is something which is very important, and we don't need to look at the West, कि वो लोग क्या कर रहे हैं, उनका system, उनका climate, उनका weather, उनकी thought process सब अलग-अलग है. We have to contextualize our master plan. Master planning में जब पढ़ते थे हम लोग, तो first सबसे पहला एक काम होता है that used to be regional context, and उससे पहले भी contextualizing the whole site. You know what is happening. So you actually do it for that context and not do this कि ये master plan यहाँ से उठाया और यहाँ लगा दी तो चलेगा. It will not work. You know, and that is the thought which has to really come in from day one. And all the people, whether they are junior planners or they are senior planners, if we are all aligned on that, I'm sure we will be able to do something great about the opportunity that we have. You know, we are sitting at that cusp where इसके आगे हम या ऊपर जा सकते हैं या नीचे जा सकते हैं. So I think if we take this opportunity well, we definitely are going to go up. And I'm sure with this presence in this room, with so many people interested, and through ITPI, this will then get relayed to all the other planners in the country. I'm sure this is definitely going to make a dent. And thank you very much ITPI for helping us do this. So I come quickly to my presentation, and this is about experiences and challenges in Doon Valley. We have been, at WWF, we have been working in Doon Valley for a very long time, and these challenges and experiences, that whatever I'm going to explain and show here, are basically what we have felt for so long, and we have tried to analyze them. And if you feel all this analysis is correct or the right direction, we would be very happy to associate with the town planning department to be able to take care of the environmental aspects of planning. Normally in a master plan, your environment chapter is somewhere 17 or 18. जब तक वहाँ पहुँचते तब तक सब थक जाते हैं अपनी डेमोग्राफिक प्रोजेक्शन और सब कुछ करने के बाद काइंड ऑफ फिर वो एक चैप्टर बना दिया जाता है. But the aim of this workshop is that bring that chapter from number 18 to probably number 2 or number 3. And if we can do that, everything else that follows will work. Even things like the provisioning of social infrastructure, physical infrastructure, networks, everything that is there in the master plan will start following the dictates of environment. We cannot ignore environment. And mind you, this is just a glimpse of what we feel. This is not to say कि देहरादून गलत है या देहरादून सही है या दून वैली गलत है या दून वैली सही है, because ये प्रॉब्लम किसी भी शहर में कहीं पे भी हो सकती है. Just because we have worked extensively here, we feel that this is an example which is worth thinking. And because of the location of Dehradun between these forest ranges and protected areas, it becomes more vulnerable. It is actually at a little at a disadvantage. It cannot grow beyond a certain point. It cannot tap more resources, but still being the capital, it has to grow. So what is the way that we can actually make it sustainable, make it grow, make it a flourishing city? And for that, I'm not giving any solutions there because I don't have solutions. And I would solicit solutions and suggestions from everybody. Already, Sipankar talked about this, the ITPI, even Mr. Kulshresha talked about it. The ITPI, we signed this MOU, and all this workshop and the further dialogue are part of this. So the theory of change is something which is very important. All this prologue that I have given, this discussion that we're doing, not a discussion, monologue, I have been talking, analysis, then taking it up with the authority, taking it up with the people who are actually making decisions. And in this case, all of you are decision makers here. So I think the third step doesn't apply to you. But for us, the third step also applies. And when I was talking about, our jurisdiction, we normally, how do we work? We either work at the city level, or we work at a peri-urban level, or we're working at a regional scale. Unfortunately, again in India, the regional scale planning has really not picked up. We've only had very few regional plans which are successful in our country. We are all focused on our master plan boundary, uske andar zonal boundary, uske andar special area plan, and we keep working in that. But somewhere, I hope people who are in this room will actually start seeing what is happening outside also. You may not be able to do anything, right? But if you are aware, maybe you could inform your counterpart who is on the other side of the boundary wall. इसको ऐसे कर लो, मैं इसको ऐसे कर लेता हूँ, मिलके हम काम कर लेंगे. We have to start talking to each other. Again, using the example what Dipankar gave, 4 areas, we have to start talking to each other. If we start talking to each other, we will reach somewhere. Now just look at this. Now coming to Doon Valley. This is a small graphic. Look at the elephants, right? And I'm sure you're going to be seeing these corridors tomorrow. You see that from Ranchiwala there's a corridor which comes from, elephant comes from there, gets to Darandi. You see this, there's another one, Teepani, and then there is one in Chula. So these are 4 or 5 corridors which are just in a very small area. And the space in between, this is Dehradun, and this side is Rishikesh. So we have very limited spaces which are being used for roads, for railway lines, and also for elephants to move around. So that becomes the bottleneck. So for me, that becomes the priority area. That हम शहर के अंदर क्या कर रहे हैं वो एक अलग चीज है. हम उधर की वहाँ क्या कर रहे हैं वो क्या कर रहे हैं, फॉरेस्ट क्या कर रहे हैं वो अलग है. But ये जो areas हैं, these are the areas become extremely important for us as planners and conservationists together. This is what we need to create. The picture which Dipankar was showing earlier was a previous timestamp. This is also a Sagel's picture. And you see how all these agricultural lands where basmati used to grow has become getting gradually converted to residential. And as a planner, I can, the reason that I see somewhere lies in the zonal development guidelines. Zonal guidelines say that up to 75 square meters you can create एकल विवाद, अपना घर बना नहीं माना. So this is also offloading the problem to town plan department. Are we willing to take this? Or if we have to do it, और अगर हमें प्लान करना होता तो हम इसको अच्छे से प्लान करते हैं. So these are the things. This is an experience. This is also a challenge. Same thing. These are some of, now these are my pictures. So you see the forest. You see all these were agricultural land. This was the river, and animals would actually come to the river and go across. But because of all this development here, you have areas which are where we call human-wildlife conflict. All that is happening here. क्योंकि जो खेत में घर होते हैं, जिस इंटेंशन से वो हमारी दोनों गार्डन बनी थी, खेत बड़े बड़े थे, खेतों में बाउंड्री वॉल नहीं होती थी, तो एनिमल आ भी रहा है और चला भी गया. And generally, if you look at the agriculture lifestyle, nobody is awake till 12 o'clock at night. शाम को जिसको गौधुली बोलते थे, गौधुली in Hindi, especially in the UP and Uttarakhand language, ये सबको बिहार. गौधुली is basically the time when the cattle starts returning back to their wherever the houses are. So when people start coming back, उसके बाद अंधेरा हो गया, बहुत उसके बाद people are inside their houses, and खेत के बीच में अगर animal जा भी है तो जा रहा है. You are coexisting. But now with this kind of development happening, there is no concept of, or really no concept of segregation. Everything is just a mesh. You will see some of these schools and colleges coming here. This is colleges. So you have Dehradun, you have forest, and then all these things are happening. So what makes Doon Valley vulnerable? And it's not just to say it's vulnerable. I would say that it is something which needs attention. And everybody is still focused on Doon Valley, including the department, including people in academia, including all the like-minded people. Everybody is worried about Dehradun. Not just Dehradun, actually Doon Valley. क्योंकि Dehradun अकेले में exist नहीं करता. Doon Valley is part of the larger Doon Valley because that's a homogeneous region. And in 1989, this entire Doon Valley was declared as an eco-sensitive area. And because why it was, declared, it had a lot of ecological richness. You see all these things. I'm not going to go into details because Pramod has been telling me time's up. But what is important here and what makes it challenging and vulnerable is that अगर पूरे उत्तराखंड की जो population है, उसका 15%, 33% of urban population lives in Dehradun. 33% lives in Dehradun. Doon Valley alone, 15.5% of total population of the state. स्टेट की पॉपुलेशन का 15.5% तो दून वैली में रह रहा है. तो दून वैली क्या करेगा? The kind of pressure which is there on Doon Valley, that has to be somehow eased. That has to be planned in a way कि वो pressure जो है हमारे environment को impact ना करे. And this is a challenge. This is something which I alone cannot give you a solution. I have no solution. जब हम सारे मिलके बात करेंगे तो I'm sure we will work out some, we will figure out some solution कि हम कर क्या सकते हैं इसके अंदर. You see the kind of population density in the accumulation. इतना यहाँ पे ऋषिकेश पे है, बाकी सारा यहाँ है, और बाकी पार्ट स्टेट खाली है. अभी खाली तो है, लेकिन इसको इतनी पॉपुलेशन को संभालना जो है, वो भी एक बहुत बड़ी जिम्मेदारी है. So horizontal expansion. Now बढ़ता गया, पहले 2000 year 2000 में this was there. These धीरे धीरे 2024 में आके ये कहाँ ये बाला है ट्रिगर ऑफ द डेवलपमेंट्स सेटलमेंट्स है, ये कहाँ कहाँ तक बहुत बढ़ना शुरू हो जाए। जब इतना क्लोजली बढ़ना शुरू हो जाएगा तो what is going to happen to the forest? What is going to happen to the animal corridors? Presence of wildlife. You will, I'm sure you will see some elephants tomorrow in this area. You see the kind of elephants and all the wildlife which is there. This is for tigers. There are tigers which are present in this area. अब हम अगर टाइगर के एरिया में जाएंगे, एलिफेंट के एरिया में जाएंगे तो वो तो फिर हमारे पास भी आएंगे। तो somewhere with this information, can we do a better plan? Can we think of areas कि चलो ये हमारा no-go areas है, यहाँ नहीं जाते, यहाँ कुछ और कर लेंगे। लेकिन we can probably go to some other areas, or we can think of other strategies of accommodating so many people who keep coming to Dehradun. और Dehradun की population is about 10 lakhs today. तो वो कहाँ जाएगी, कहाँ उसको accommodate करना है, we have to figure that out. Because of the urban expansion, horizontal expansion, I think this slide, because of projection, you can't really make out what is happening to the forest quality. The forest quality also is gradually deteriorating. You see some dark green, it is actually becoming light green. I can share this presentation later, so maybe you will see it on your computer screen, it may not be visible right now. And what I was talking about in terms of the choking of the corridors. So we had this corridor here, we had this corridor here, this corridor, another corridor here. You see 4 corridors there. And this is 2024. So when the city keeps growing and development keeps on happening, and when I say development, it is not development which is planned by the authority. It is not development. A lot of this could be encroachment. A lot of this could also be where people themselves are doing these kind of things. And उसकी वजह से हमारा जो corridor है, वो choke होना शुरू हो गया. You know, all these start getting choked. So these are potential areas for conflict, and we have to be conscious of the fact that this is something which we have to avoid going forward. अभी तक जो हो गया, लेकिन आगे हम इसको कैसे रोक सकते हैं? And human wildlife conflict also, if you see the numbers have been increasing. And why? I think I'm sure as planners you can all correlate with what I've discussed earlier. Multiple environmental concerns in Doon Valley. There is something which is nice, something which has, there are some concerns. But I will again not get into this detail. We can take it up later when we start the discussions. This is again very interesting, and you see this how from 1994 to 2018, how much the city has grown, how much the development has actually happened. In a span of about 20, 30, 25 years, it has actually moved from there to there. Now what happens because of all this? There's so much of pressure which the city has to bear. इतने लोग आ रहे हैं, इतना चाहिए, रिसोर्स चाहिए, बालू चाहिए, पत्थर चाहिए, वेस्ट जनरेट होगा, वेस्ट.
Earlier it used to be connected for wildlife movement at several places, and now because of several developmental activities, the connectivity is completely fragmented, especially for large animals like elephant and all. You will see that what impacts are happening because of those things. Sorry. So here what I try to and it's I've just sorry here I'm just trying to indicate that this is the area which is confluence of 3 rivers. So you can see the developmental activities. So this is Rispana, Suswa and Bindal rivers meeting at these places, and today is this situation. So the catchment of these rivers is taken over by you can say settlements and all, which is impacting in a like different way. We will be going to this particular area. This is Raiwala and this is Motichur, very close to Haridwar. And this is river Ganga, and this portion is Rajaji, eastern part of the Rajaji, and this is western part of the Rajaji. Earlier, the eastern part of the Rajaji was well connected, you can see here, through these two corridors, and there was movement of wild animals, especially elephant and tiger, between these two areas. And this is again 2010 Google Earth image, and if you go before, because that was not very clear, that's why I have used 2010 only. And I am working in this area since 1999, so I have seen how development has overtaken the area which used to be open for wildlife movement. So in last 15 years also, if you see this portion and this portion, the animal is now not able to use this portion to go from eastern to western side, and the western side of Rajaji is around 600 square kilometer area. I will tell that how it has impacted. The fragmentation has happened in the eastern and western part. This is eastern part, which is connected with Corvette Tiger Reserve also through. There is a Lansdowne Forest Division in Uttarakhand, and there is another forest division like Bijnor Forest Division of Uttar Pradesh. And there are many other developments have happened in last 50 years, like canal, road, railway line was already there, but establishments came in the last 50 years. So how it impacted the entire landscape? You can see the animal which used to go to river Ganga, because of this canal they are not able to reach to Ganga. And I just wanted to show, and I used to, because so every time this particular video, that how animal reacts about these challenges. So this is railway line which passes through Rajaji Tiger Reserve. This railway line is for last 100 years. But you just see the reaction of animals. So I wanted to show this particular video just for our understanding that how they take the developmental activities. And this is again near Corvette Tiger Reserve. There is a Ramnagar small town in Corvette Tiger Reserve, and after that there used to be, if you see this portion, this is Dipli. I've just even zoomed this particular portion, and you see this in 2025. This side is Ramnagar Forest Division. Earlier, elephant, tiger, they used to use this particular area very easily because it was open. Agriculture field was there, but gradually lot of tourism infrastructure came, and I can say that unregulated way, and that has now there is a wall-to-wall the boundary wall is connected with each other, and that has in fact blocked the movement of all animals, and also has increased the human. I'm not giving more emphasis on those, but this is one of the major reasons of human-wildlife conflict, animal entering into, and I will show some of the examples of those. So you can see that how the animals are not able to use, and which is becoming barrier. You see this. So you can see the fate of animal, and that's why it is very important that when we are thinking of any developmental activity, we should keep in mind that there are many other animals, ecological things around us. Only not thinking about the human being. Ultimately, I can say that whatever we are thinking for even ecological things is we are thinking ultimately for human being only. We should keep in mind about these challenges, or these animals are also around us, and many things. So all these are from, you see this one from Haridwar, near Haridwar. So earlier these areas used to be open. Animal were using, they are using for last several hundreds of years. Now development has happened. You know, this is threat for us also. Threat for them, threat for, there was time in 2007 and 8, in these areas only one elephant came, because elephant used to come in the evening, go back in the morning. They used to go to river Ganga, and they go, just see, these areas 20 years back, nothing was there. You see, one person failed just in front. And see the gentleness of this particular animal.
So you've been working on this a long time. I have a very small question. Why do you feel people behave with these animals as if these animals are aliens? Why is it that we behave that these guys are aliens? When they're coming, why are we shouting? Why are we behaving as if they're attacking us? And he's actually dodging. He's not coming at us. He's dodging us.
Yeah.
Still we are shouting. Still we are
So
what is this behavior? Why does it happen?
this is, very common behavior of people, because earlier, see, we always feel that they are intruders, but we are intruders.
Exactly.
So, but people do not understand about these things. Even many times, there is a road now, the NSI is making overpass in that particular section. There is one bridge over the canal, and that road goes from Haridwar to Najibabad. Elephant every day during summer, because they do not have, you saw that one canal where an animal bent down. You see, the stair was hardly less than 2 feet, and the huge animal getting down, because they are not able to approach river Ganga. They are now bounded, and they have to use the water. So that bridge is being used by the traffic, and also in the evening by elephant to cross, because there were no other area where they can cross the canal, and they have to go and to reach water in the river Ganga. So every day there were many occasions when we stopped the vehicle. Still people do not want to understand, and there was time in 2012, lot of accident happened because of these things, and almost around 24-25 people were killed near Rishikesh. There is a road between Rishikesh and Baniawala, that road which goes from Dehradun to Rishikesh, and then the same road from Rishikesh to Motichur, Haridwar. So in that area, around 24 people were killed on road by elephant. Not because of the elephants were kind of wrong, or they were doing something, because of people not stopping, they are changing. You saw that how people are behaving to these animals. So I'm just bringing these things because this is happening every day. This is happening every day.
You raised a good question. There are more reasons for that. See, one is, some people believe elephant is God. They would like to worship. Okay, so they try to reach nearer to that elephant, not knowing it's a wild elephant. There are people who want to take a hair out of the tail of the elephant. Okay, so while the elephant is moving, they are jumping over it, and of course scaring it away and things like that. So a whole lot of reasons are involved, and ultimately it's like a mad. There is no pattern in that, and that's where you see this kind of a thing. But every time it is such a complex thing to find out what is provoking that people to behave in that manner. And that makes things so difficult.
And this video is a very good example that you saw, that one man fell down very close to the elephant, but still that animal went away. Accidental death happens, and then the animal are blamed because that this has happened, something like that. This is happening always. So these are the situations. I'm just bringing some of the like this video I just brought to share with all of you, because you are actually leading a very good area where you can, when you are planning, you should be keeping.
और उसके तहत जिसको दून वैली नोटिफिकेशन हुआ, उसके तहत काफ़ी हद तक हम लोग सफल भी हुए, जिसको प्रिजर्व करने के लिए कई जगह पे दिक्कतें भी आई, परंतु अभी दून वैली नोटिफिकेशन को खत्म करने की बात की जा रही है। दून वैली नोटिफिकेशन का MOF ने ड्राफ्ट डीनोटिफाइड करने का बना दिया है, और दून वैली डीनोटिफिकेशन के ड्राफ्ट पर आपत्ति सुझाव मांगे गए जनता से। यद्यपि वो समय निकल गया है, यद्यपि किसी को अपनी बात, आपत्ति या सुझाव चाहे ITPI को या अन्य को उसके समय निकलने के बाद भी भेजना चाहे तो वो भेज सकता है। अभी डीनोटिफिकेशन हुआ नहीं है, लेकिन डीनोटिफिकेशन की तैयारी है। तो ये अब WWF को देखना है कि किस तरीके से उस दून वैली नोटिफिकेशन को कैसे रखना है, आगे किस दिशा में रखना है, क्योंकि ये एक अग्रणी संस्था है जो इस तरह के क्षेत्र में कार्य करती है। और दून वैली नोटिफिकेशन के क्रम में ही माननीय उच्चतम न्यायालय द्वारा भी कई महत्वपूर्ण निर्णय दिए गए हैं। अभी हमारे दून वैली नोटिफिकेशन के क्रम में ही जो हमारे मास्टर प्लान हैं, पहले हमारा देहरादून मास्टर प्लान अलग होता था, एक साड़ा मास्टर प्लान अलग होता था। तो दून वैली नोटिफिकेशन के क्रम में ही दोनों को एक ही मास्टर प्लान बनाए जाने का निर्णय भी लिया गया है, जो कि अभी उस पर यद्यपि मतलब ये डिसीजन तो हो रखा है, उसकी कंप्लाइंस अभी चल रही है। तो कंप्लाइंस के अभी चीज़ें चल रही है, तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट में अभी हम लोग उसमें लगे हैं। और तो इस तरीके से हम लोग काफ़ी बचाने की दिशा में हैं। यद्यपि ग्रीन एरिया की जब हम बात कर रहे हैं, फॉरेस्ट, अर्बन फॉरेस्ट की, महुआ की गाइडलाइंस भी आ रखी है इसमें। महुआ का मैं शुक्रगुजार हूँ कि उन्होंने अर्बन फॉरेस्ट की गाइडलाइंस जारी करी है। जो अर्बन रिफॉर्म्स हैं उसके अंतर्गत हमें फाइनेंशियल असिस्टेंस तभी मिलेगी स्टेट्स को, हर स्टेट्स के लिए है, कि जिसमें कि अगर आप अर्बन फॉरेस्ट, एक अर्बन फॉरेस्ट क्रिएट करेंगे तो आपको 25 CR मिलेंगे। तो इस तरीके से, और 1-2 आपको अब हर स्टेट में करना ही करना है। मास्टर प्लान के अंदर अर्बन फॉरेस्ट क्रिएट करना ही करना है, इट्स कंपलसरी। तो ये महुआ की गाइडलाइंस हैं। इस तरह की गाइडलाइंस और भी आए, जिसकी मैं अपेक्षा करूँगा। इसके लिए इस तरह की अर्बन फॉरेस्ट क्रिएट करने के लिए मास्टर प्लान में नई तरह की कुछ गाइडलाइंस आए। ग्रीन को कैसे प्रिजर्व किया जाए, URDPFI के मानकों को कैसे प्रिजर्व किया जाए, न्यूनतम मानक कम से कम उसको रखा जाए। हमारे जो ग्रीन एरियाज थे, 18% मास्टर प्लान में मानक हैं जो हुआ करते थे, लेकिन आज की तारीख में हम 1 या 2% पे हैं, जो कि बड़े गंभीर विषय है एनवायरनमेंट के हिसाब से। तो ये सब चीज़ें हैं। यद्यपि दून वैली में, जो दून वैली के देहरादून में, इसलिए उसका प्रभाव मौके पर देखने को नहीं मिल रहा है, क्योंकि यहाँ पर बड़े बड़े जो हमारे भारत सरकार के इंस्टीट्यूट है, सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया, ONGC, तो इनके काफ़ी कैंपस हैं जिनमें कि ग्रीन एरियाज हैं। तो उसकी वजह से ये सब चीज़ें भी प्रिजर्व हो रही हैं। लेकिन जो प्लेग्राउंड्स हैं, जो हमारे खेलने के मैदान, ओपन स्पेसेस, जो पार्क, वो सब हम अब धीरे धीरे कम हो रहे हैं। तो उनको हमें कैसे प्रिजर्व करना है, उसके लिए क्या गाइडलाइंस बनानी है, उसके लिए क्या रूल्स होने चाहिए। तो उसके लिए ITPI का भी सहयोग अपेक्षित है, WWF और ऐसी अन्य संस्थाओं का भी सहयोग चाहिए, साथ में हमें महुआ का भी सहयोग चाहिए, ताकि राज्य में इस तरह से हम प्रिजर्व कर सकें ग्रीन एरियाज। और बाकी हम जो इन्होंने दीपांकर है ना, उन्होंने जो मैन और उसकी एनिमल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट की बात की, वो भी हमारे यहाँ काफ़ी है। वो रामनगर क्षेत्र में काफ़ी रिसोर्ट्स वगैरह हमारे मशरूमिंग हो रही है, तो उसके लिए हमने इको सेंसिटिव जोन्स भी बनाए हैं। एक हमारे यहाँ और भी बहुत, मैं शायद कहना हुई, एक भागीरथी नदी घाटी जो हमारा जो इको सेंसिटिव जो है वो बना हुआ है, वो भी देश में अनोखा है। भागीरथी जो है हमारा इको सेंसिटिव जोन है, जिसमें कि चीफ सेक्रेटरी की अध्यक्षता में होता है। जो है हमारे यहाँ का जो स्टेट एनवायरमेंट एंड फॉरेस्ट जो एनवायरमेंट जो विभाग है वो इसको देखता है, और इसके अंतर्गत किसी भी तरह के निर्माण की परमिशन जो है वही दी जाती है, और उसका भी वृत्त क्षेत्र है काफी बड़ा। तो एक हमारे ये भागीरथी इको सेंसिटिव जोन, एक दून वैली नोटिफिकेशन, ये दो महत्वपूर्ण हमारे यहाँ एनवायरमेंट की दृष्टि से नोटिफिकेशन है। और जो भागीरथी वाला है वो भी माननीय उच्चतम न्यायालय के निर्णय के परिप्रेक्ष्य में ही गठित हुआ था। टिहरी जो हमारा जब डैम बना था उसके दृष्टिगत। तो ये सब चीजें हैं जिनके हम कई जो एनवायरमेंट से रिलेटेड जितने भी इश्यूज हैं वो ज़्यादातर तभी किए जाते हैं जब हमको कोई ऊपरी निर्देश या माननीय उच्चतम न्यायालय एनजीटी या उस पर आता है, पर हम इसकी अपेक्षा ये करते हैं कि जैसे महुआ है, अब महुआ इसका पहले अर्बन रिफॉर्म्स की गाइडलाइंस नहीं आती थी, लेकिन अब हर वर्ष अर्बन रिफॉर्म्स की गाइडलाइंस आ रही हैं। तो अर्बन रिफॉर्म्स की गाइडलाइंस के तहत जो उन्होंने अब इस साल ये भी किया है कि हिली स्टेट्स का अलग रखा है, नॉन हिली स्टेट्स का अलग रखा है। तो हिली स्टेट्स के परिप्रेक्ष्य में कुछ ग्रीन एरियाज हैं जिनको प्रिजर्व किया जाए, तो ऐसी कुछ गाइडलाइंस स्टेट्स को आए जो कि फाइनेंशियल असिस्टेंस से जोड़ी जाएं। तो उन चीज़ों में शायद उसके बाद मेरे को लगता है कि कुछ प्रभाव आएगा जिस दिशा में हम ये ग्रीन एरियाज, हम प्रोटेक्शन, हम बायोडाइवर्सिटी बाय इनको सबको प्रोटेक्ट कर सकें। धन्यवाद। कोई प्रश्न हो या कोई ऐसे सुझाव या किसी के हो जो कि हमारे राज्य को लगते हो, तो कोई अगर बोलना चाहे या डिस्कस करना चाहे तो। थैंक यू।
जो कुछ अगर ऐसे अगले 3 दिन में जो हमारे कुछ इस तरह के सुझाव या पॉइंट निकलेंगे वो फिर हम आपसे शेयर कर लेंगे फॉर्मेट डॉक्यूमेंट।
सर एक
WWF के साथ MOU के लिए भी मैंने कह दिया है ताकि एक चीज समझ में।
सर एक और चीज़ मैं जोड़ना चाहूँगी, स्ट्रेस पे इन्होंने बात की थी, ITPI और सेंटर फॉर साइंस एंड एनवायरनमेंट ने मिलके एक टूल किट तैयार की है, हीट टूल किट, जो जनवरी 2025 में नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस ने रिलीज की है। वो आपके लिए आई थिंक बहुत हैंडी टूल किट है। आई ऑल्सो स्पोकन टू PT एंड द अदर टू, दैट इज व्हाट यू कैन लुक एट। एंड ITPI की इसमें कोई मदद
आपने बहुत कहा है मैं उनका भी देख उन्होंने क्या रिसर्च करी है, तो उसको हम कैसे अपने मास्टर प्लान में इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकते हैं। थैंक यू सर।
Now continue with the presentation by
Thank you very much. And for me, I think it's my first opportunity to have an interaction with the planners specifically, because of course the rivers and wetlands work, when we work a lot with the water resources department, with irrigation department, with forest department. But for me also it's going to be a learning. Of course, when we have discussion sessions, I also learn. What I'll actually present today is our perspective and our thoughts around urban planning as well as freshwater resources. How freshwater resources are getting impacted because of certain activities that are done along the river banks or close to the wetlands, and how it basically deteriorates the health of these freshwater resources. So I'll basically talk about 3 things: a general overview, which many of you may be aware of also, but so please bear with me. But I think it's important to begin with a proper context so that we are clear what issue or what aspects we are dealing with. Secondly, various freshwater resources, rivers, wetlands and aquifers, very important, groundwater. So these are the things that we talk about, and then finally some of the measures that WWF is actually implementing along with various government agencies, partners, academic institutions and research institutions. So these are some statistics. I will not read it word by word, but the bottom line is that we have very little fresh water available, which we need to conserve, not only for the people but also for the nature, and therefore we of course while talking about planning aspects, we do talk about water resources supplies to different consumptive uses, including domestic, agriculture, industries and institutional, but at the same time it is one single resource and which is not infinite. That is something we need to bear in mind. In our context, we basically have 4% of global water resources, whereas our population is about 16 to 18% of the global population. So therefore, you can understand the stress that we already face. On the other hand, in our case, if we look at the water use part of it, water use, majority of water use we all know goes for agriculture, which is, in our case, is more than the global percentage which goes to agriculture. As you can see, about 85 to 89. These figures with 5% here and there you will find in different literature. So just you can understand that it's broad figures, and somewhere you will probably find 85%. In Indian context, somewhere you will find 90 also. So it's an average of that. In terms of current water use efficiency, so this one is specifically with respect to agriculture. It is about 30 to 35% in our agriculture systems, in our irrigated agriculture systems. Whereas the global average is around 50 to 60%, which means there is ample scope to basically free up or secure water from this particular sector. Then obviously per capita water availability has been declining decade by decade. On one hand it is declining, on the other hand our demand is increasing because of change in population, numbers are increasing. Secondly, change in lifestyle patterns also. Our demand is also increasing individually as well. There was a report by McKinsey recently, and they basically said that by 2030 our water requirement will go up to 500 BCM, billion cubic meter, whereas our supplies are around 740 BCM. So we can see the mismatch. It's kind of double is what we are wanting, but our supplies are pretty limited, and therefore it's very important to understand the water resources, its availability in the context of the planning aspect. Another important thing is that most of the solutions that people have thought of in terms of improving the water use part of it, the efficiency part of it, it is felt that in the agriculture sector there is ample scope to basically reduce that, the demand part, so that you can save or conserve that water for other uses as well as for the environment. Some data with respect to Indian context. Here you can see that 60% of our surface water resources lies in Ganga and Brahmaputra river systems. So again, within the country also there is a bit of disparity in terms of Haridwar. This picture is from Mansa Devi from Ahilok. So you can actually see what is happening to the river here. You have a Bhingoda barrage, which is diverting 80-85% of the water into irrigation canal. On the other side, you have river, which is deprived of water. Whatever you see in the river is basically seepage and leakage from the big gates of the barrage. Now, in the case of Ganga, which is a slightly, I would say, different case in terms of if you compare it with the other river systems. In 1936 or 1937, when Britishers thought of putting a weir here to basically divert the water for irrigation canal called Upper Ganga Canal, that time there was a lot of discussion between the British engineers as well as the Purohits and Pandits of Haridwar and the erstwhile Maharajas, that we don't want Ganga to be completely stopped, because for them that is the river course, not this one is the river course. So eventually it was a 3-day workshop, and then a lot of deliberations happened, and finally British engineers agreed that okay, we will ensure uninterrupted opening in the barrage with the name of Ramdhara. And that Ramdhara will ensure that there is a continuous flow happening in the Ganga all across, which was kind of a negotiated approach or agreed approach, and people from our side also agreed, and therefore that weir was built. And after during the modernization exercise, I think in the mid-80s or so, this barrage came up called Bhingoda barrage. What you see here is that throughout the year, more than 10,500 cubic water is diverted from Ganga river, released into Upper Ganga Canal, and about 15 to 18 districts are fed by this Upper Ganga Canal in the state of Uttarakhand and UP. Uttarakhand largely Haridwar is the beneficiary district, but in UP there are so many districts of western and central UP which are fed by this water. So the point I wanted to make is that it's very important that this canal serve the purpose because over 10 lakh hectare of irrigated area is fed by this system. But what is happening to the river then? That is where the issue is. Because what you are seeing, one, obviously a very big obstruction happening there. Secondly, there is no water in the river. On the name of Ramdhara, of course, that in uninterrupted water is passing on, but that quantum is minuscule in comparison to what is diverted. So that's the one big issue that WWF works on called environmental force. How much flow in the river needs to be maintained to maintain the ecological integrity of the river, to ensure that the river is able to provide the services and functions to the society, people and the nature. Again another picture, you can see the city developed all around the canal, not so much around the river. You see the driveway over there. It's a very vast floodplain because during rainy season or wet season, this is completely in water. However, this canal keep on feeding that 10,500 cubic water throughout the year. It's a perennial irrigation system, Kharif, Rabi, any season, water will be released. Only for 15 days in a year, that is from Dhanteras to Deepavali, this canal is closed for cleaning purposes. Otherwise, it's 24/7 discharge. And when Britishers planned this, I think the discharge was around 6,000 cubic, which is now almost double to about 10,500 cubic, because our irrigation demand is also increasing. The irrigation pattern which was planned at the time has also changed over a period of time. So therefore our demand is increasing. So this entire belt of Haridwar, Saharanpur, Muzaffarnagar, Meerut, up to Noida, it's all sugarcane belt. So our water demand for sugarcane, obviously this system was never designed to support sugarcane irrigation. But because it's a cash crop, there's a complete ecosystem to support sugarcane farming, this has grown as a sugarcane belt. Now, in this case, of course, they have done a lot of flood protection works and all that, but what happens? River remain in the confines of the floodplain, this canal keep on diverting water. In fact, most of the people who visit Haridwar still feel that this is a river. Because Harki Bod is built on this, so they basically have a holy dip and they go back home without even realizing that they actually took a dip in the canal. Now, this is the picture of Ramganga river, upstream of Moradabad city. You can see Moradabad city is actually starting from there. And you can see the kind of activities happening on the both sides. What happens with alluvial river systems is that their banks are very low lying. When banks are low lying, people have a tendency to come closer to the river in terms of encroachment. It could be agricultural encroachment, it could be encroachment for built-up area or for park or something. In this case, you can see people have started moving towards closer to the river. So you can see wherever water is flowing, only that land is left. The rest is all occupied. And one of the issues that we as a country also face, which of course now people have started taking notice of that and started doing some work around that, which is floodplain zonation. The zones of floodplain, marking of those zones, and so that do not allowing any activity in the floodplain zones, leaving that floodplain zone as it is in intact form for the river to basically move around as and when it requires. This exercise has started with Ganga, and in some tributaries also it has begun. But this to me is one of the very critical elements when it comes to managing or conserving the river system. Because unless you allow the river the very space which it is entitled for, very difficult to conserve the river system. Now this picture is very close to Moradabad city. Again you can see the length of the bridge actually. Now, in an ideal world, the bridges are constructed, you all are planners, you know better than me. You look at 100-year flood zones. You look at the space which you wanted to leave for the bridge, within which river can play within 100 years, like the floodplain zone area. So this bridge is actually about, I think, 1.5 kilometers long. But if you see how much space people have left in the river for the river to flow, It's massively encroached all agriculture, and I'll show you in next photograph this. That's Moradabad city on the banks of Ramganga. The city has actually is pushing the river on that side. On the other hand, this area is pretty much, I would say, villages or agrarian belt, but this one is totally, completely or highly saturated area in terms of urban settlement. So it actually keep on pushing the river on this side. Udhar se idhar to dhakka milta hai, the river is confining. Whereas if you see the length of the bridge, it's way beyond this, but it's flowing in a tiny portion. Here you see the issue of local drains or nalas getting into the river. Again, a picture is from Moradabad only. This drain gets into the river, and obviously A, pollutes the river, B, it kills, I would say, the assimilative capacity of the river to self-purify itself. So it doesn't allow the river the opportunity to improve itself or in terms of water quality. This is a picture of a small wetland from agrarian belt, and you can see there are small channels actually which feed this wetland. The ineptness of these channels is very critical for the health of the wetland. For the wetland to receive the water, because wetland not only receives the water during rainy season, it also receives water through these small channels. It also gets return flow from the agriculture. So if these smaller channels are not intact, or they are disturbed or encroached or polluted, then it gives a very clear reflection on the health of the wetland also. This is the picture from Karnataka where you see series of wetlands. Some of them are connected also, but what happened? The connection from wetland to wetland is generally through a stream. And those streams are encroached, either encroached or something else is built there, or severely polluted to the extent that water is unable to flow from one wetland to another wetland. That's another area of work which needs to be picked up in terms of planning part. And now I come straight to one example from this very same city. My colleague shared this picture, and it was quite stunning to me because I realized that there is no contribution from the catchment coming to the wetlands, and how will wetlands survive? It's impossible to ensure that this wetland remains in a good health. It is not possible. You have killed the entire hydrological connectivity to the wetland. So this to me is very critical when it comes to planning part of it. Same is the case with rivers also. As you have seen that the urban settlements are actually not only close to the floodplain but lies very much in the floodplain itself. So even if you do the floodplain zonation, you say that this is my 100-year floodplain zone and 100 of the houses are falling within my zone, then how are you going to unsettle those? It's a hugely difficult administrative issue, but today or tomorrow we'll have to grapple with these things because you and I, all of us know that rivers, these mighty rivers, as and when they wanted to prove that they are mighty, they will prove. And none of us will be able to stop them. It happened in the past, it will happen in the future also. Better that we take lessons from this. Now, coming to a healthy freshwater resource. It should provide various systems, the services to various systems, it should provide various functions. It should also serve various ecosystem services. Now, it ensures that the habitats are intact, the aquatic life is intact, the terrestrial species who are dependent on these either wetlands, ponds or rivers is intact. Water quality is in a reasonably good condition. Now, water quality is a very debated topic in terms of rivers and wetlands. Some people feel that the water quality, my drinking water quality standard should be there in the river or in the wetland. That's impossible. Impossible to even think also. Outdoor bathing water quality standards, which are something which they agree to, okay, because it has reasonable amount of dissolved oxygen to ensure that the aquatic habitat for the aquatic life is, for the life in the river is well maintained, or they flourish, or they basically proliferate in that sort of thing. So that sort of water quality is something that we ask for, or we basically aspire for. That's what we wanted to mean here. it ensures a very strong or healthy relationship between surface water and groundwater. The discussion that started with how much should be the flow has gone to the point, I mean, this is what, when it started in 1992 about minimum flows, sir is here, sir knows it very well. And then of course we graduated and then kept on doing some more studies, some more research on that, and now we have reached to a point where we have these questions. We call them next generation questions, that if e-flows or flows are to be restored in rivers, from where the water will come? Because 80% of water we are diverting, at least in committed river systems. When I say committed river systems, those river systems where water is actually committed for different uses. Now, in those river systems, how do you ensure that flows are restored? Because these are the commitments from the system, and those commitments in the current setup or scenario, we are not in a position to reduce them. Because there is a demand, there is agriculture demand, there is city demand, there is industry demand, we are feeding those demands. Suddenly you tell them that we will cut your quota by 50% or 60%, it's going to be very difficult. And it's going to be administratively or from the governance perspective a huge challenge. So how do you deal with those things? So those are the questions that not only WWF, but the people who are working in water sector are grappling with, that if we have to revive our river systems, from where we will get the water. I am unable to move the slide. Yeah. So some of the studies that you see listed here, the orange ones are the ones where WWF was actively involved or led those studies. The blue ones are the ones where either Government of India, Biodiversity of India or other institutions were carrying out that study. Yeah, that's one. So when we typically talk about environmental flows, there are more than 200 different methodologies through which you can do the assessment part of it. How do you assess how much is the requirement at my location? For instance, I have Song River or Bindal River or Ispana River. When it is passing through Dehradun, how much should be the flow in my Bindal River during lean season or during wet season? How much flood should be there in the river, which is required for the river to sustain its functions? So that sort of understanding we need to develop. So in order to do that, we basically look at all these aspects. We study all of them for a given river system. For instance, if you are talking about Ganga, very big river, and very complex river also when it comes to working on things like environmental flows, because you know our Ganga river system is heavily committed to different consumptive uses, the water resources of the river. So therefore, you need to study these things, you need to understand what is the aquatic biodiversity in the river, you have to understand the hydrology, the water resources, the flows part of it, how much is the flow during lean season, wet season, from where it is coming, how much is the glacial melt contribution, how much is the spring contribution to it, and therefore you develop your own, and then of course you look at the water quality aspect also. Based on that, you decide how much is going to be my environmental flow. It's a pretty much multidisciplinary ask or a study, which you have people coming with water resources background, water quality background, geomorphology background, aquatic biodiversity background, social, cultural and livelihood aspects. All those groups sit together, deliberate and come up with certain numbers, which we basically say that okay, for so and so location, this is the environmental flow requirement. Generally, such an exercise takes about 1 year to 15 months. That's our experience. Our first exercise took 3 years, but then of course we became more efficient in delivering on that one. We are working in Ramganga from last 13 years, since 2012, 2013, and before that we did environmental flow assessment for Ganga River. When I say Ganga River, we identified few locations on Ganga River and did the environmental flow assessment on those locations. One of the locations is Kanpur. And then of course there were upstream locations also. But Kanpur was more, I would say, contextualized here because of the discussion that we are having with Kanpur. Obviously very industrialized town, and you have e-flows requirement at there. So how will you meet that? Because you have massive input of pollution coming to the river. And as part of environmental flow assessment, you have also said that my water quality should be of certain class or category or certain parameters that I have identified as part of my eco assessment exercise. Now, how do you ensure that that happens? Doing a study is one thing, which is more of a scientific technical study, but implementing that on ground is a totally different ballgame. And you know, be it organization like WWF or any other NGO, we are in no position or we don't have any capacity or locus standi to manage our river systems. That's the mandate which lies with the government, their departments, their officials. They are the ones who regulate, they are the ones who manage the river system. So obviously you'll have to work with them, you'll have to convince them this is important, and therefore you should be trying to support in such a cause. So something which we were not able to do in Ganga, we thought that we should do in Ramganga. In case of Ganga, we only did the study. In case of Ramganga, we thought that we should move ahead from the scientific study on own. We should get into the implementation part of it. How do you release flows in the rivers with the department? And once you release the flows, what is the benefit that river is getting with the improvement? Yes, sir.
One question, how much of the stretch of the river do you study? Like you live for a particular stretch. What about the other stretches? Does everything have to match for the complete stretch of the river?
Yeah, so I'll tell you about Ramganga. Ramganga is about 650 kilometer long river. Okay, so general approach of doing flow assessment is that you basically do a homogeneous zonation exercise. That's the first thing you do, in which you will divide the entire 650 kilometer stretch into different homogeneous zones. Okay. Now, in each of the homogeneous zone, you will identify one site, which is a representative of that homogeneous zone. Okay. Now, all your investigations, studies, or information collection will happen at that one site, considering that that one site is a representative of that zone. Now, in case of Ramganga, we did environmental flows for 8 locations. And these homogeneous zones are based on elevation, based on city providing input in terms of pollution to the river, based on tributary confluences with the river. So those sort of considerations are there. Based on those parameters, we do zonation, and within each zone, we identify location. For instance, if we say that we have identified 8 locations, then we are also saying that which is fairly representative of each zone, and therefore it is representative of the river itself. So that's the approach we take. Same Ganga ke saath bhi वैसे ही किया हमने. Yeah. So I'm not getting into the details of how we did that, but this is just to give you a snapshot how this journey was actually being covered so far, and we are still continuing. We started this work as a pure scientific and technical exercise in 2013, 2014, 2015, 16. At that time only we started engaging with the Uttar Pradesh Irrigation and Water Resources Department, because Ramganga river, as you know, has a huge dam, storage structure called Ramganga Dam, Kalagarh Dam. And Kalagarh Dam is the second biggest after Tehri in terms of storage. So you can understand the quantum of water it stores. It stores over 2,200 MCM of water, million cubic meter of water. Very big reservoir. And entire Kalagarh Dam area falls in Corbett Municipal. It's a unique structure which was started, I think it was, the construction started in early 70s. During that time only Corbett got declared or something like that. Therefore, despite falling in Corbett, you have a huge water resource in infrastructure. And then obviously, it's a multi-purpose project. It also generates power. 198 megawatt power generation it does. And it stores that 2,200 MCM of water, which is largely meant for Uttar Pradesh. So the irrigation benefit of that project is for the state of Uttar Pradesh. Some of the districts of Uttarakhand also benefit, but then that proportion is very less in comparison to what it gets. And the third objective of that project was flood moderation. There is an agreement between Uttarakhand and Uttar Pradesh government that on the water we have the right, on the power you have the right. Water right lies with Uttar Pradesh, and power right lies with UJVNL. So UJVNL basically runs and manages that system. Uttarakhand Jal Vidyut Limited. And UP Irrigation Department regulates the dam for the purpose of irrigation. Now, once you are storing the water there, you are not allowing any water coming downstream of that dam, which means river is deprived of flows. So obviously the issue of flows becomes the most important aspect for discussion at that particular point. Not so much the quality part of it, because quality gets impacted once you reaches close to Moradabad, which is like I think 80, 90, 100 kilometers downstream of that. So that's where we started working with them. We tried to explain them that this is the situation. You are actually not allowing anything in the river, which is not good for the river and the life in the river. And what we did along with them, we also studied their reservoir. For last 40 years, how much water storage it is having year by year, and how much is their requirement. So if their requirement is met, and if they have some surplus left in the reservoir every year, then why not we play with that cushion? Why don't we use that cushion to provide environmental flows in the river? So that was the discussion we had with them. We explained them that every year you have about 200 to 250 million cubic meter of water left in your reservoir, which you are not using. You can release that for environmental flows. So there was some agreement arrived at that. And finally, in 2021, they agreed that okay, 4 cubic meter per second water we will start releasing in the river, and they started releasing also. So WWF along with the department, we are monitoring whether they are actually releasing or not. So one is of course at their dam and barrages they are filling their registers कि हम पानी छोड़ रहे हैं. But we thought that we should also monitor whether it's actually happening or not. So downstream of that structure, about 500 600 meters downstream, we have our own system where we are monitoring that. Our purpose is threefold actually. Not just to see whether there are improved flows in the river. Our purpose is also to see how it is benefiting the aquatic life over there. For instance, if the water depth was like half feet to 1 feet in a pre-release scenario, which is in a post-release scenario has become 4 to 5 feet, how much beneficial it is in terms of aquatic habitat for the species. Wherever you go, you will find this. And then obviously pollution from industrial and agricultural belt. And you see, encroachment doesn't only happen from urban spaces, encroachment also happens from agricultural spaces. I'll give you an example. We are working in Ramganga, and since Ramganga river was not having water since 1975 or 76, at the time when the dam was operational, from 80 to 2020, which is 40 years. There was hardly any water in the river during lean season. Therefore, people thought that इसमें कभी पानी आना ही नहीं है, इसलिए सारी जमीन कब जा रहा हो. So farmer used to cultivate very close to whatever is flowing in the river. Now, when this 4 cubic water started releasing in 2021, there was a huge hue and cry amongst those farmers कि ये हमारी जमीन में पानी आ गया है. ये तो उनको समझाना बहुत मुश्किल था कि ये पानी जो है ये अपनी जमीन पे आया है, आप इनकी जमीन में बैठे हो आकर, क्योंकि 40 साल गुजर रहे हैं और 40 साल इज अ लॉन्ग पीरियड, जनरेशन चेंज हो जाती है, बच्चे समझते नहीं उस चीज. वो कहते हैं नहीं हमने तो ऐसे ही देखा इसको, आप कहाँ से पानी इस पे डाल रहे हो. So it's not that it happens only in urban spaces, it equally happens in rural landscapes also. There was a huge hue and cry when the releases started happening in 2021-22, and these local villagers who have either encroached the land or were practicing agriculture very close to those river reaches complained to the local MLA that we don't know what has happened. These dam authorities have started releasing water without our information and all that, and it has submerged our land, and we are losing a lot of this is leading to economic losses and all. So that MLA called up the chief engineer who sits in Moradabad, with whom we have been working very closely, and I personally feel he is one of the biggest champions for the work that we are doing. He is now retired, of course. So he got a call and he called me also, asking me that this has happened. He said, I was foreseeing that. This was expected. So आपके पास भी फोन आएगा, आपको चिंता नहीं करनी है कुछ भी. ये नदी का राइट है, मैंने ये ऑर्डर कर रखा है, इससे मैं पीछे हटूंगा नहीं, चाहे जो मर्जी. 2-4 दिन अखबार में आया, वो ड्रामा हुआ खूब उसका. तीसरे चौथे दिन कुछ नहीं आया, सब हट गया. 2021, 22, 23, 24, 25 5 साल से लगातार पूरे लीन सीजन में environmental flows are being released in Ramganga. There has been no such case. Now the department is fully onboarded on that particular aspect, and in fact last month only I had a discussion with the current chief engineer, again very bold officer, very positive and bold officer. He said, I wanted to increase this value of 4 cubic. He said, how much it is meeting your eco requirement? I said, sir, 40 to 60% it is able to meet. You may need to take it to about 13 to 14 cubic to match our eco requirement for the lease. Then we are 100% done. Then he said, you prepare a note on that and tell me what benefits that 4 cubic has brought to the river. Based on that, I'll use that as an argument and we'll try to push that. So that's why I'm saying that the journey is still continuing. We have not yet reached where we wanted to be, but it's progressing well. So yeah, so these kind of people are very important in your work, and I'm sure champions are across the sector. You will find some good officials who will be supporting you, and then of course you will find some bad officials. That also happens with us. I remember another story where a new chief engineer came to that position, the very same position. I went to meet him to explain that what we are doing and all that, and he heard me patiently, and after some 30 minutes he just told me one line. He said, I don't believe in what you are doing. For me, once in a year, river will clean itself during the rainy season. But I सब कुछ साफ हो जाएगा, कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं. So that was the state. You have these kind of things also. So it happens as part of the game what you are in. But within a couple of months, this guy got transferred because of his own issues with his staff. And then new person came in, and the new person is the one with whom I am working right now. So these things do happen, but one should not lose patience.
I have just one question.
Sure.
Can you explain a little bit more about the invasive species?
Yeah.
A little bit more about generalities.
So invasive species, so I'm coming from two perspectives here. One is the flora and one is the fauna. Both are equally detrimental to the water resources, be it ponds or wetlands or rivers. What happens actually, at times deliberately or at times unintentionally, certain species got introduced to the system, be it floral or faunal species. In case of fauna, what happens? If you accidentally, knowingly, unknowingly introduce invasive species, they will basically be the hardy species. They will be completely finishing the existing natural fauna of the area, and therefore it's not a healthy sign for the system. On the flora side, certain species got introduced intentionally or unintentionally will obviously change the balance, the floral balance in the area. At times what happens, some species got introduced which are much more water intensive in terms of water that they use for their growth. So that again impacts the very balance of the ecosystem, either it's a wetland or it's a river. We face this issue extensively in rivers and ponds both, because fishing or fisheries as a practice many people do, and they are not really bothered whether it's an invasive species or a naturally occurring species. They just wanted to see which species will fetch good money from me. So they just go with that. So what happens in pond, if they are doing it's a closed system, it is still fine, but what happens, certain species or eggs of those hardy species or invasive species accidentally got introduced to the river systems. Once they are entered in the river system, then they are in the river system, go out. Then it's unstoppable, very difficult to stop. They will be finishing the existing fauna of that place. It's a very big issue that we grapple with in our river systems. Sir, do you want to throw some more light on that? You come with that.
No, see, we need to look at examples on that. When India imported wheat in the 60s, along with the wheat, Parthenium came. And today now it is...
You will feel, ये कहाँ है? ये भारत में है. People come from Switzerland, people come from places, countries I don't even know, and they say कि we cannot believe this exists. Till date. And in harmony. It's not like these people are saying कि हमारे पास ये नहीं है, हमारे पास वो नहीं है, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. लद्दाख में कोई गरीब नहीं है, लद्दाख में कोई भिखारी नहीं है. लद्दाख में everybody is happy, polite, and surviving nicely. This is their culture. This is Nubra Valley, and this is stupas that you would find in Ladakh almost everywhere when you're walking. Why I'm taking you through this is,
बाय द टाइम ये हम थोड़ी सी स्लाइड्स देख लेंगे, हम सब लद्दाख में होंगे, तो देन वील स्टार्ट। पहले लद्दाख में पहाड़ों के अंदर जितने भी हमको केव्स मिलते थे, उसमें दे यूज्ड टू यूज मड, उसकी ब्रिक से दे वुड मेक हाउसेस एंड लेट्स से शेल्टर्स, जितना रिक्वायर्ड है उतना। दैट्स अबाउट इट। सो दिस इज फ्रॉम अ monastery which is near in Zanskar. The llamas eat like this till date. This is a recent picture from my phone. They all eat the same thing, served like we are served in gurudwaras or maybe our mandirs, and this is the kitchen. A very humble, nice, organic kitchen. देख के आपको लग रहा होगा कि काफी चीजें, but you'll see things which are recycled, which are sustainable. See the wood there, see this person there, he's been wearing this jacket for his entire winter. वो इसी को पहने रखेंगे, वो नेक्स्ट विंटर फिर से इसको पहन लेंगे, वो दूसरी जैकेट खरीदने का सोचेंगे भी नहीं, इसके अंदर छेद आएगा तो टेप लगा लेंगे। Doesn't matter. Just have to protect yourself. That's it. So this is a, और इसमें इतने सारे लोगों के लिए खाना बन रहा है और वो सारा खाना लोकली सोर्स्ड उगाया हुआ है। This I have included because ये ग्रीन है तो भी सुंदर है, ये ग्रीन नहीं है तो भी सुंदर है। We are talking about a cold desert. So this in the winters thrives and then becomes green again in the summers. That's our pastures. That is in snow, without snow. Pashmina goat kids. The wildlife. And you'll see me also, because that adds to the element that I have been there, I am not lying. And if anyone has any question, just raise your hand. Only with the raise your hand, you can just ask any question anytime. This has to be interactive. I am not here to educate. Who am I to educate? Ladakh has educated me. This is an ice stupa, which we do in the winters for water conservation. And this is me trying to climb that ice, which eventually gives Ladakh, the whole region, its complete life. Because life without water is impossible. If you want, you can take a guess at the expanse of this land. I will not say. This is Pangong, which is a very important and crucial part of wetland of the ecosystem of Ladakh, which is present in the Changtang Wildlife Sanctuary area. And we share it with China. It spans more than 100 kilometers in its length. This is a lake that is present above 14,000 feet in the Himalayas, one of a kind. And it has fresh water and hard water. Hard water on our side, fresh water on the China side. So they have more like flora and fauna, and people just claim that we do not have much flora and fauna, but aisa nahi hai. We have a lot of flora and fauna here as well. Dependent like this. Yaks are favorite thing in Ladakh. Everywhere you will go, you will be driving, you will find Ladakh. जैसे यहाँ पे हमको गाय मिल जाती है, हमें वहाँ पे याक मिल जाएगी. This is to represent the economic dependency. वहाँ पे लोगों का सबसे main जो what is it called? I'm sorry, please help me out. Source of livelihood is tourism. Tourism, infrastructure, travel agencies, hotels and campsites. These used to be popular before, campsites. They are another case altogether if we go deep, because compared to hotels, these are very sustainable. But then we'll go to that later. This is a photo representing that MG ki EV gadi. About 3 years back, when it was just getting launched in the market, came to testing to Ladakh. So that is how it serves us, and we don't even know. It is getting charged in a place which doesn't have its own electric system at all. कहाँ से आएंगी तारे और कहाँ से आएगी प्लम्बिंग? रोड नहीं पहुँचती लद्दाख में. Actually नहीं पहुँचती, आप बना ही नहीं सकते उन conditions में. They don't stay.
It's charging on a DG.
It's they're carrying their own DG. But rest अगर कहीं पे charging करनी है, so most of the system in Ladakh is solar based. You will find that homes on solar, everything on solar, water on solar, Then water, say rivers, electricity production on solar.
But is there electricity supply? There is no electricity supply.
There is no khambas, no wires, no nothing interrupting our birds. If there is, so there are two. They want to revive the two, and there's a third one that they want to do a hydropower project. But I completely beg to differ because अभी तक हम बात कर रहे थे कि पानी has been the main source जिसपे civilization बनती आई है from Harappa and even before that. We have been sitting across water all our lives, and Ladakh is a place जिसको कोई पानी नहीं पहुंचा सकता अगर हमारे पास पानी नहीं बचा तो. And this is the point that I'll be coming to in the end also, because 10,000 feet पे कहाँ से पानी लाओगे आप, किससे पानी लाओगे? दिल्ली यहाँ से लेगा, वहाँ से लेगा, इधर से लेगा, उधर से लेगा. जब लद्दाख में खत्म हो जाएगा तो किसी के पास नहीं आएगा. The whole basin gets drained, and that's something that the whole India has to worry about. These are just. Let's move. See how funny our cows are. I just want to drive your attention to this tree on the bank of Pangong Lake. This is called the lone tree. पूरे 60 किलोमीटर के स्ट्रेच में ये एक अकेला है जिसको वाइल्ड लाइफ या फॉरेस्ट ने आई थिंक वॉल आउट किया है वो एक ट्री को बचाने के लिए. That's the dirt, that's the scarcity. So it's a beautiful sight. I feel so, I hope you guys do. The blue and the green and the cows and everything. Again me, for entertainment, this is just to show you the kind of elements that wildlife has adapted to because of, she has a fur that looks like that of the lions, right? And this is again a question about. So look at the fur, the quality. मेरे बाल लद्दाख से पहले सफेद हो गए थे, in case you guys are wondering. मेरे बाल लद्दाख में सफेद नहीं हुए. I didn't adapt like that. So this is an apricot tree blossoming in my garden where I live. Yeah, in Leh, Ladakh. Again, the expanse of this is tremendous. I just cannot explain. A normal floral diversity in a garden of home of Ladakh. I'm going to be a little less formal because formalities completely kill the feel of what we're trying to do here. So I'm going to be as I am. This is in Hindi they call it nala, but this is exactly a fresh water source. Like this is my house. This is a 6 feet mitti ka road. This is a nala. I go, I pick out water, and I wash my clothes. I do my. At the time it was so clean that I used to do my dishes also. Now though again construction things have come in and these laborers and everybody they start dumping in it, but it's that clean. The thing that I don't like about it is it has been cemented now, not required at all. क्या जरूरत है? मिट्टी में जाने दो ना पानी को. बिना बार के सीमेंट लगाए जा रहे हैं. Again diversity. This is partially Thorn Pangong Lake. This is just like, let's say, maybe 10% coverage in the camera. And this is the urban sprawl of Leh. Leh is the only urban center in whole of Ladakh. We have 2 districts, Ladakh and Kargil. And the only urban center in the whole of Ladakh is this place, which is the most pressurizing place currently to the whole Ladakhi ecosystem. Just one small place. And I don't know why these much lights are required, to be honest. See how naturally, beautifully they're already surviving. That's their lifestyle. These are uber good quality clothing, handmade or sourced from Tibet. This person is doing in front of you from yak wool. The colors, the richness, the cultural significance, and they don't boast about it. Again, little diversity expands. Imagine you are in the office. मुंबई से है यहाँ पे कोई भी नहीं है. मुंबई कल्चर है ना, 5 बजे चाय पीने जा रहे हैं, अब तो जा रहे हैं, अब तो हो गया ऑफिस खत्म, 5 बज गए, चाय पीना है, हमारी ड्राइव जा रहा है. वहाँ पे 5 मिनट ऑफिस से निकलना होता है, 5 मिनट की छुट्टी लेनी होती है, आप ऐसे बैठते हो. ये नॉर्मल है, ये कैजुअल है, ये हमें अचीव नहीं करना है, ये वहाँ है, उनके लाइफस्टाइल में है. Look at their fields, look at their greenery when, like in summer, ये थोड़ा सा cover increase हो रहा है because of global warming, but at the same time, all of this is present. This is present. We know that we have a waterway, we know water is a scarce resource, we have to go over it, simple, end of story. And then we come to this. This is a market. Why I got you through this is, I just wanted you to see that we have everything. Ladakh is tagged, as you were saying, barrier building. Barrier building is very, what do you say, degrading to any place we go. When we make barriers, when we make boundaries, when we segregate, is when we stop coexisting. It is like saying कि तुम्हारे हाथ में दर्द है, amputate कर लो. That's not the way to go. Your body works on a homeostasis. The nature works on a homeostasis. मेरे को लद्दाख देखना है, मैं सिर्फ लद्दाख नहीं देखूंगी, मैं तिब्बत देखूंगी, नेपाल देखूंगी, other surrounding areas देखूंगी. I cannot just, just go there and say, as an army, as a defense, okay, hero culture, all of this never works. Is not going to work any further either. Urban, okay. So yes, it talks about rise of tourism, it talks about the agricultural change because people are changing their livelihoods, which was majorly agriculture based and everybody was happy and eating well. They've changed. Urban sprawl is one thing that is actually degrading the flora, fauna and the complete ecosystem dependency, changing animal instincts, what else? Extreme weather events. This is repeating itself. The Ladakhi flora, I will not show you flowers and stuff, I'll show you a grassland which is much talked about on Instagram also, I believe. We are all on Instagram. I hope all planners are on Instagram. Yeah, na? Yeah, okay, great. इतने भी cut out तो नहीं है हम. Okay. So this is to show that it is equally beautiful when it is in the winters, when all of the flora and fauna goes brown, flora goes brown, and it still survives, thrives on the running channels. A photo that I have missed here, I'll talk about it later. This is the fauna that is in Sopar Lake. We have a lot of iconic mammals, as you can see, a lot of avian richness. Yes, key characteristics we'll talk which are to the flora and fauna, which is it is adapted to the extremes, temperatures, oxygen, sparsity. It is low diversity, but it is highly specialized. Exceptional ecological adaptation, that is why we are getting GI tags for our medicines, for our fauna, for our apricots. Something that you'll get here, you will not get anywhere in the world, and this is for a fact. This is not something that I am trying to prove here. Threats to fauna. This will be shared with everybody, right? So I will again skip the facts. Some of the endangered species, and I'm sad to say this, but the data on Ladakh is very scattered. There is no central census on Ladakh data. Organizations across India and outside, they come, work independently, maybe with the government, without the government, the administrative support, and then they publish their journal, paper, book, and then leave. Yeah. And then they leave. What happens? We're left with n number of data on the same thing. मेरे को कहीं पे 60 बर्ड की स्पीशीज मिल रही है, कहीं पे 64 मिल रही है, कहीं पे 70 के ऊपर जा रही है. Who will say? Who's to put a thumb on it कि नहीं ये बिल्कुल सही है? So that's our first issue in Ladakh. Thank you. इसको नहीं बड़ा फुल स्क्रीन नहीं हुआ ना. ठीक है, so we will just compromise with the aesthetics. ठीक है, this is okay, this is pleasant, it's okay, I think. It's PDF, I don't know. I get it. This is a typical scene of a young being. It won't be visible. Picture थोड़ा सा बहुत दूर से है. We do not invade, but I just want to show you the uniqueness of the land and the fauna here. Some of the notable elements are there national parks, there are wildlife sanctuaries, there are Ramsar sites. Rams हो गया. Sorry. I'll show you a picture of Sogar. This is a Ramsar site where we see how we're based there. Then we see the grassland. Then we see the water basin. We see salt. And then we see the mountains. Everything.
And we'll study how the development has happened. So initially the development has happened at the junction of the upper lake and the lower lake. And gradually the urban settlement expanded. And it generally happened towards the eastern and northern side. And later on it has engulfed the catchment area also. And due to the encroachment, the lake has suffered a lot. Now you see, this is the upper lake, okay? And just you see this feature, okay? So this is when the water was completely full, and then it got dried up.
Is missing. Sometimes involvement of all the government agencies is also missing. Then there are regulatory frameworks, but we have to reinforce the frameworks. And the climate change mitigations, incorporating climate change mitigation and adaptation of new strategies in the town planning is the need. So
अब उसके साथ से वहाँ पूरे इधर भी आ गए हैं, इधर भी आ गए, इधर पे कुछ गवर्नमेंट ने रोक रखा है रिस्ट्रिक्टेड एरिया उनके कि वहाँ पे हम कोई कन्वर्जन नहीं करेंगे और स्पेशल एरिया जोन बना रखा है तो बचा हुआ बाकी उसके 3 टाइप्स है किलो साइड से बड़े-बड़े हो जाते हैं.
The state has been divided into various geographical zones which includes 5 major zones which are Shivalik Hills, Lower Himalayas, Great Himalayas, Trans Himalayas, High Alpine pastures and glaciers. All depends on the mean sea level height which is given there. In terms of flora, we have approximately more than 3,295 species of flora. इनमें से 325 are endemic species which are only found in the state. The key species are listed here: Deodar, Kale, Ban, Oak, Himachali birch and Rhododendron. Rhododendron is also the state.
Virtual platforms that we can suggest, and she was also discussing it, is that can we have a portal on or this interactive map on ITPI website, link it with NIC server, link it with WWF website, link it with Parivesh, so that planners, engineers, everyone can go and then see that what's happening. If not the whole country, then at least the important areas, at least the high conservation value areas, and those data are available. We can get you the shapefiles of the presentation that I was showing, all those dark blue and dark red patches. It would be about say 20-30% of the country. So if ITPI, we can discuss about it, about the modalities. If ITPI can host this mapping database, that would be really fantastic.
In fact, we were discussing about this only that on our website.
Right.
We will start a section for this.
That would be fantastic. From WWF, we will definitely be on board. We have an MOU. But to make it more sustainable, we have something called Coalition for Wildlife Corridors, where all the W organizations, the Wildlife Trust of India, the Wildlife Research Society, the Wildlife Conservation Trust, all of us are kind of loosely bound to share information on corridors. So we can bring each of them, all of them, with all the logos, and provide information to you so that if you need some information on a district, you would be able to reach out to a person and say that, okay, do you have any information about animal movement or about biodiversity from this area? I think that is probably one of the takeaways that I am going away with from this workshop. Then the second one is about, I think somebody mentioned about this whole single window orientation and implementation. This is something which the government of India is also trying to do. I'm part of some committees which is chaired by, of course, NBWL, we had one meeting which was chaired by the Honorable Prime Minister, but many other meetings which are chaired by the Honorable Environment Minister of Government of India. Ladies and gentlemen, the narrative has really changed. Dr. Mathur and I, we attended a meeting of Project Elephant way back in 2011 or 12, and the then minister from the same, no, it was 2000, but it was NDA 1 or something. And the minister said, when we were talking about Rajaji train hits and elephant deaths, we are basically proposing that reduce train speed to something like 30-40 kilometers an hour. We were told that India is moving on a development pathway. We had a Project Elephant meeting in the month of April, and this happened to place in Kaziranga. It was presided by, just before that, Honorable President Draupadi Murmuji, she was there, and again, the cabinet minister chaired the meeting, and where we said that if you have been to Guwahati, there is a wetland next to the airport called Dipor Bill. That's the flood management wetland for Guwahati city. Guwahati is getting into severe flood because that wetland is getting messed up. So we said that elephants are coming to that wetland, there is a train line, can something be done and can speed reduction be done? The minister said that, well, that's a temporary solution. Give me permanent solution. And Wildlife India, the Institute of India scientists were there, engineers were there, and they said that the only solution is to take the train above the track. Someone said from railway said that yes, but it's not vehicle goods train to Guwahati, which is the longest train in the country because a lot of goods are transported, will need to have that incline and decline. You know what the cabinet minister said? He said, why are you worried? Government of India has enough funds. Give me a solution which will work. The solution was given, and in the next meeting, the cabinet minister of environment came and said that the railway minister has already approved 600 crore for starting the work. Where is the DPR? So I'm saying the narrative is changing. It's not like environment ministry has to provide funds. They said we will figure out the money. Whether we are going to a MDB, a multilateral development bank, or we are borrowing money from Canada Pension Fund, a private finances, we will bring solutions. So I think there is a very strong desire to bring in solutions and show India in a more sustainable and development pathway, the way we can work on it. So that on the third day, my boss will be here, Sejal, and we have requested her to facilitate some of the discussions. She is extremely capable to get things out of people. She has been a great mentor for all of us. So I'm going to have a discussion with her so that, the white paper, it's not important what is the volume of that document. Is it like 10 pages? It can be half a page. But if we can have concrete points which are actionable, which we can action together between ITPI, WWF, and each of you with your state agencies, if we can work together, some actionable points, that would be great. Like MP, I'm looking at you, we have had several discussions with the Chief Secretary before COVID. We dropped the ball after COVID. So can we restart some discussion? Can we strengthen your hands, do something together? So if we can create some action points, that should be great. And lastly, everybody was talking about traditional knowledge. I think someone started in the morning, then ma'am, you talked during your presentation on Ladakh, and it kept on coming. Is that at some point of time, and you were saying in the morning, we need to promote this traditional knowledge. Having a 800 rupees Bluetooth earphone and not elephant crossing the road and getting hit by a truck. Whose fault is this? It's not the fault of the manufacturer of that earphone, but it's the fault of the person who is using it. This is how society is changing. Can we make some change in that? Can we promote traditional knowledge? If there is any traditional knowledge about land use, and I go back to our morning discussion about One Health, is that why Nipah virus was, and there was this beautiful study which was published I think in Hindu or Indian Express, which said that the bats which are carrier of the virus, they were earlier roosting in mango orchards or fruit orchards which are outside the village, but because of land use change, the village has gone to the orchard, so the fruits which are nibbled by those bats are falling in the village premises. And the first death of this guy, Rafiq or Rajak, he became, poor person, he died. It was a case study that he actually, quick discussion on what is this nature-based spatial planning, how can we make it more sustainable. I think that would be a great way forward for us. So thank you so much. I am learning a lot from all of you. There have been fantastic presentations, we should preserve them. And I was hoping that why didn't we do it in Delhi, and I would have wanted all my colleagues from different programs to see this. So thank you so much. I'm sorry I have to leave. Hope to meet you sometime soon. Thank you.
Almost like 160 square kilometers with good water, but the elephant is like unable to use it. On this side, the elephant population almost till Yamuna. That is the last northwestern population of elephants. After which you don't have elephants. See, so Uttarakhand is the last stronghold of elephant, the northern population of elephant. Uttarakhand is the last. Same thing with tigers. Uttarakhand is the last stronghold of tigers. Rajaji's got tigers. So right now it is not till Yamuna but till Rajaji. So Rajaji is Uttarakhand, last for elephants, last for tigers, also last for king cobras largely, good population of king cobras, and last for great bad hornbills. So this is the northwestern limit of these four species. After which the elevation and everything changes so much, the distribution is not good. Now what is happening is the elephant have already been pushed from Yamuna towards Ganga. This is the last remaining. They are unable to go from year to year. Over time, this population will still have connectivity.
500 government that time we proposed for greenfield development और systematically सारे आपका सीवेज ड्रेनेज का प्रेजेंटेशन हुआ था, पूरा पैसा सब कैसे होगा फाइनेंशियल सारे
but we will be there sometime in our life, and when we get to that position, that will be your time to basically give it back.
This river is there, and that side is Chila, and that's why we call it a Chila situation corridor. You can see the forest extend till there. And as I mentioned during my presentation also, and because that part is Chila, so we have around eastern and eastern part we call it because of the Rajaji is divided by river. So and I am just talking about 20 years back, only few houses, agriculture field. So an animal used to move. So that's why I'm saying. So this used to be corridor. What happened during 1970s? This railway line is there for last 100 years. But in 1970s sometime, several developmental activities came in this area. One of them was canal. You will see that is a power canal. Chila have a powerhouse, and how it has impacted. You will be. I showed a photograph where elephants are getting down. They cannot go. They cannot cross, and even it's so slippery, so that animal, if once get down, this area, the Raiwala still have lot of all these developmental activities gradually
और जो हमारी सोच है इतनी पॉपुलेशन के बावजूद इतना वो और इतना यहाँ पे इश्यूज है, मतलब इंडिया के अंदर तो आप कई तरह के इश्यूज हैं क्योंकि इतना ज़्यादा पॉपुलेशन है, लेकिन फिर भी जितना प्रोटेक्ट कर पा रहे हैं और जितना अच्छा प्रोटेक्शन, और हम तो बहुत लकी हैं कि हम उत्तराखंड में 13% लगभग पूरा जो हमारे पास जोग्राफिकल जो लैंड है उसका 30% प्रोटेक्टेड एरिया हमारे पास, और 60% के आसपास अगर टोटली अगर फॉरेस्ट देखा जाए तो इतना है। बट वही है जैसा सर अभी बता रहे थे कि अगर अभी से ध्यान नहीं देंगे इवन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर और अदर जो डेवलपमेंट जो हो रही एक्टिविटी हो रही है, तो जैसे हमने अपना लैंड दिया था, एमिनेशन डैम को लैंड दिया था, वो सारी ये रिलेटेड ही है।
तो यहाँ पे वो नंबर और उसमें एक टाइगर निकला जो यहीं से निकला, जो हिमाचल में है अभी, so that is the tiger records in Himachal after 120 years. So that is the only tiger in Himachal on the record. सिकलवारा में और राया जी और सिकलवारा
बेसिकली हम चाहते हैं ये पहले पूरा रिपॉपुलेटेड हो जाए, फिर जो
लेकिन
नेक्स्ट जनरेशन आए
इसको इकोलॉजिकली आप देखोगे कंजर्वेशन वैल्यू राइट नाउ ऑफ द टाइगर इज उत्तराखंड में एवरीवेयर
But how are we getting organized or unorganized? Organized.
उसमें सर सब
नहीं, ये तो हुआ है, ये जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है इसकी भी निकाला हुआ है, और यहाँ की सब ये
हाँ वो साफ करते हैं ना, धूल साफ करके खाता है।
पापा एलिफेंट उधर होगा अल्टीमेटम दे दिया था मैं, निकलो भाई बहुत टाइम हो गया। अल्टीमेटम मतलब कैसे आप निकलो यहाँ से।
ना वो प्रोजेक्ट लेते हैं
बहुत बड़ा है इससे भी छोटे छोटे बच्चे अच्छा तो पहले तो काफ़ी ओके
So this picture shows, this is after the intervention. This picture shows that what
all the rivers are, all the nalas, everything, they have big tanks. And all the irrigation and the cultivation is based on those tanks. But we didn't do it because we usually get rain, so we didn't do that. But we now feel that it is required to a certain extent to, because rain is becoming not very regular, long spells of dryness and short spells of heavy rains. Like Wayanad also, the people knew the day before itself, the people have the
report, just a set of, not necessarily guidelines, but a set of a thinking document, a thought process in terms of what are some of the things that need to be kept in mind when you're going into this kind of planning process. So there are many different options for an output. Let us collectively think about what will be the most useful thing and what is doable. Because, one thing I've seen is that long reports out of these workshops, nobody reads. So rather than coming out with a long report, these were the presentations, this one said this one said that, if we can come out with a succinct 3 or 4 page summary document which really captures a way forward. Because challenges are one thing, it's great to put all the challenges on the table, we are fantastic at it. We are very good at putting challenges out. We struggle when it comes to how do we overcome these challenges. So I think today, whatever little time we have left, we should really focus on a way forward. I'm not saying solutions because there's nothing like a solution. But let's talk about a way forward for each of the challenges or the major challenges that we've identified. Something that comes out that is useful for both you all and for people who are not here. Because the idea of this is to actually take this externally. And we will have many avenues for advocacy using this. So many different avenues, both in your states, at the central level, also with private sector. There are so many different ways in which we can use the influencing power of this group that has got together. So we'll talk about that a bit. I don't need to introduce myself. I'm Sejal. I'm Program Director at WWF-India. I've been with WWF a very long time. I've worked in India. I've worked in many other countries outside of India for about 15-20 years. I've come back to Mussoorie, which is my hometown. And I think people have also told you that I've set up a little model there in terms of trying to, and partly this model, I'll tell you a little bit about the challenges that we faced in relation to land acquisition and all. Urban settlements with natural values. And, to my mind and my belief is that every city or township of any certain size needs something like this, needs a natural space. And I don't mean a park. I don't mean a city park kind of a thing. City parks are fine. But a real natural space which is performing a whole lot of ecological functions, including water recharge, etc., carbon storage. There's so many things that are going on. Let's see how this model can be also, I'm very happy that you are here because I think some of you can take this idea and go back to your states and look at opportunities to actually create these kinds of little spaces in urban areas. So we can talk about that later. But right now, summary, so that I get a sense of what all has been discussed. And then what we'll do is we'll look at the way forward. And then I guess close the session. So over to you.
The challenge might be for the online participants. Please use the mic.
Let's see how long
online. There are some online participants as well. So.
Hello. Okay, so first of all, good morning and thank you for giving us this opportunity to summarize what has been happened in the last 2 days. So we'll be discussing a brief summary and highlighting the challenges that were observed during this 3-day seminar, of which 2 days have been covered so far.
So we had a full day of sessions starting with introductions from V.B. Mathur sir and V.P. Kulshesha sir, and then followed by Dipankar sir, Shiv sir and Amit sir from Water Team at WWF. And then we had many presentations from different landscapes from across the country, from ITP representatives from Ladakh, Bhopal, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Kerala, Himachal Pradesh and UP, and then this was followed by a full day field visit which happened yesterday. So we'll start with what was discussed by V.B. Mathur sir and Kulshesha sir.
Firstly, V.P. Kulshesha sir introduced about the collaboration with WWF. The main objective of this is to promote natural resource safeguard practice among planning professionals. Then they introduced about key goals regarding integrate nature-based safeguard planning, then promote climate resilience, then improve planning practices with nature-based.
And the session was followed by Dr. Mathur's session, where he talked about the emerging keywords like impact of heat island effect, importance of nature-based solutions, climate resilient cities and how they're very important, low carbon economy, about connected blue-green network, where he gave the example of the city of Dehradun and how he compared it to the city of Amsterdam, that it had a connected canal network, but we were not able to maintain it. And this session was then followed by Dr. Ghosh's session, where Dipankar sir talked about how we can actually coexist, and be it ecology, be it in terms of natural resources, natural resource safeguards, and there have been like massive infrastructure investments in the country, so he definitely had highlighted the point of financial de-risking, and also mentioned about the Living Planet report that WWF has, and without compromising on like how we can actually develop without compromising on cultural and ecological integrity. Also, while advocating for climate resilience, low carbon economy, and sustainable urban development, and that protection should be beyond the protected areas and not just limited there, and while highlighting the landscape conservation benefits. So, and the session was followed by a session by Shiv Marwaha sir and Anand sir. Shiv sir highlighted how planners and the conservationists are like the two drivers or the two steering wheels of the development bus. He also explained that the environment as such does not understand the administrative boundaries, and how and that is why regional planning plays a very important role when it comes to planning and master planning.
The problem was like the Doon Valley, the increasing urbanization, slum growth, and also the ecological degradation with over-exploitation and concretization in these areas. And this also talked about like how in the wildlife context we have there are accidents and fatalities due to the elephant encounters, and also example of turtle dying after getting trapped between the railway tracks. And also to design the ecological buffers that can prevent the disease spillovers.
Anand sir also highlighted how the populations of elephants have been distributed across the eastern and western Rajasthan, and how this has been leading to the urban development has been leading to human-wildlife conflict. The session was followed by the session by Nitin Kaushal sir, who basically talked about the freshwater systems and the importance of their conservation, the importance of hydrological connectivity, base flows, and issues such as encroachments and threats on the urban wetlands.
Then we had a few inputs from the Bhopal chapter, where Hariom Maheshwari talked about the Bhopal Development Plan of 2031 and the efforts that they have been taking on the development plan and how they have divided the city into Upper Lake and Lower Lake.
Then there is a few threats regarding encroachment and pollution, suppression, activity overflowing. So they can implement, they can prepare their master plan, but their master plan is still not implemented in context.
This session was followed by a session by Bhavna Verma ma'am on Ladakh. She started by presenting the beautiful landscapes of Ladakh, and then she moved on to show how the traditional lifestyle there has been and how the development has been happening, especially in the city of Leh, which has been expanding very rapidly. She also showed a lot of freshwater systems and the way it was being used traditionally and how it has been started impacting now.
The main challenges was comprehensive planning documents and fine-scale biodiversity data among the is the weak regulatory enforcement and also the urban design guidelines that are being relaxed in these areas. The approaches that should be come up from that presentation was the conceptual planning that align development with local practices and ecological realities. Also to empower our interventions like involving locals in the co-creating solutions using AI technologies that can help the people living there so they can track and they can also use that AI technology for the improvement and the future growth, and also preserving the traditional systems of the architecture and agriculture and the water use of the area.
Then the Maharashtra chapter talked about how it is a biodiversity hotspot, and about the Western Ghats, which stretches from Gujarat to Tamil Nadu.
Then they also discuss about the urban planning challenges, like there is a lack of coordination between different departments like town planning, PWD, electricity, etc. Then there is a floating population and infrastructure pressure on roads and housing also. Then there is a limited resource, insufficient funding and stakeholder engagement. These are the key problems.
But even though these challenges exist, there are strategic recommendations in terms of single window coordination, linking ecology with economics and sustainable urban planning. Also, they talked about the Save Lake campaign of 2009, where they launched the Restore Upper Lake. This was followed by a presentation by Rakesh K.R. Singh from Rajasthan, and he basically highlighted how the planning there has been a disconnect between the planning that we do on paper and the implementation of that planning. And despite a good intention in framework, there is a major gap in the implementation.
The challenges were the weak enforcement of the environmental and the planning regulations, the unintegrated development in the ecologically sensitive zones, also the urban sprawl and commercializations without proper zoning. The recommendations and like that was the proposed centralized open source GIS platform. Also to suggest to appoint urban managers that are seen in the Maharashtra presentation as well, that can oversee and coordinate development among them, and also emphasis on the knowledge transfer within the departments that can avoid the data silos.
The Kerala chapter talked about how they have a unique urbanization pattern, but there have been conflicts in terms of human-wildlife conflict, and they have only been increasing over the years. So there are a few
conservation guide, poor and resettlements.
Data, corridor-based development with spatial development strategies, and highlighted the importance of community engagement. Then there was another presentation from Kerala chapter by Naval Devan sir. With the case study of Wayanad, he highlighted how disaster management plays an important role in spatial planning. By taking the case study of Wayanad, he showed how landslide-prone areas are under pressure for development and how there have to be more stringent regulations in order to curb such development in the future, and how Disaster Management Act has become a powerful tool for doing this. The Himalaya chapter talked about the key initiatives that they had taken in terms of rural development guidelines, hill cutting policy, and how the development plans include not just land use zoning, but the green belts have been maintained over the years, even though there have been challenges and they have faced a lot of challenges to get it removed, but they have maintained their green belts and disaster risk mapping.
In their first case study, Shimla development plan, they divided different core zones, and one was for green belt zones Then they 22 greenbelt zones for urban forests protected conservation to restrict a single story. Then they strict tree cutting policies. Then 44% of Shimla area is under forest. So water bodies and nala protected with buffer zone of tree cover. Then there is a hill cutting restriction with 3.5 meter of slope.
And there have been a few issues, like we learned today, like any other chapter, that there is lack of enough compensation. So there have been land acquisition issues that exist in the state, and the monetary benefits that should be provided for relocation and compensation.
In the last case study from the UP, we had a Bundelkhand region in which we talked about the impact of the large-scale water resource rejuvenation. That intervention led to the 40% reduction in the runoff, and also the crop yield increased to 50 to 70% for wheat, barley and lentils, and also significant increase was seen in the crop yields and the household income of the people. At the last, the concluding remarks was given by Dr. Dipankar Ghosh, in which he talked about the themes, like the main themes for the mainstreaming biodiversity is already happening across planning, planning, the transportation and ecological sectors. So there is a need to move from the awareness to action through collaboration and implementation. The challenges were like the lack of coordination among the departments and the sectors. Master plans often fail to translate into ground level actions. And also there is a carrying capacity is a controversial and misused concept that should be applied to human settlements. And the proposed solutions were given like the ITPI that should create a shared platform that should link with the NICs and WWF and also the conservation organizations that can share files, corridor maps, and also contact the points for the local biodiversity data to all the planners. And also the coalition with the W organizations, the collaborative network of NGOs and research that can share data and support planning throughout India to all the planners.
So this was the conclusion of day 1. Day 2 was followed by a series of field visits. Which started from field visit to Bindal River, where we saw, actually what we saw in the presentations, the encroachments and the water pollution of the water body, which was visible in that area. Then we moved to the Chita-Muktajal corridor, which we saw as a success story where the connectivity has been maintained by proposing the overpass, which was followed by a field visit onto the safari for Rajaji, and we saw beautiful biodiversity, elephants and a lot of other things. We also observed that there was fencing within the Rajaji between the borders, so that was again an issue that could be highlighted. And that is how our sessions were concluded for the last 2 days. And today we'll take forward with the session with Anjana ma'am. She will be talking about the way forward for this program.
As we intended this session to be for them as well, and we pushed them a little bit early morning today. It was not planned for them, and we wanted to see how they raised the bar. They did. So thank you very much. I would begin first with thanking WWF, since I'm speaking on behalf of ITPI. So thank you to Dr. Bora for being here with us and sharing her views, and including Masuri in the trip where we are going to see a live biodiversity area, and extending it to us, take it to our states also as an idea. To Shiv for facilitating this MOU, and to Pramodji for organizing, coordinating, managing very well all of this, to Dr. Dipankar who have been behind this in multiple other fora as well, and to all other colleagues who are present coming from various states presenting their aspects about it. So we began, how we began. There were 3 things that we targeted in this. One was knowledge sharing, which we saw in multiple today. We talked about a lot of things today, or challenges appeared similar. So going ahead, I would think that we could divide it into terrain-wise, because we have representation from all terrains. We have the hilly terrain, we have the plain terrains, and we also have the coastal zones. So just like the CRZ regulation, can we look at hill area regulation where we could, specifically talk about alongside the river, what kind of development, can spatial planners do that? So something on that ideation on that level.
Then a lot that I heard about over the 2 days, there is a lot of learning that has happened, which is very local in nature. So I think all of you represented that, like whatever has been followed traditionally, how do we bring it to the front and incline it towards spatial planning? So that's one more thing I thought was very important, which was said that, take the local nuances and build tradition as a part of spatial planning. So that's another thing that I think we could look at apart from the terrain thing going ahead. And towards the end of this, there are certain outcomes and outputs that we may look at. So in terms of an output, we suggested that we could look at a joint publication where all of you, your case studies being compiled as a part of this, and for the executive. Now, who is this document going to be addressed to? So of course, the around 10,000 strong planner community that we have should be beneficiaries of these case studies, as well as what we put there in this document. Apart from that, an executive summary or maybe an executive note to the administrators, to the political people who will actually take a call on it and make it a part of the administrators, the bureaucrats, and make it a part of spatial planning. Not only from a spatial planning perspective, but marrying the financial aspects of the legal aspects, the regulatory aspects. Now, I hear that the Central Act overrides most of what is done in the states. That be it, I think it is, it is absolutely imperative that we bring it out in our note and uniformly apply it across the country. So what can spatial planners do over there, especially budding new planners who are still very, very fresh to this idea. Then another word that I kept hearing was nature-based solutions, which is a big area. I mean, we are going to see a nature-based solution in conservation today in Missouri, so how can we take it back to our states? That is another thing we can look at. Now, in terms of an output and output, we are clear, a joint publication, a crisp document to be shared with the executive, with the political class, with the bureaucrats, with the administrators. Apart from that, a bunch of case studies for which we already had circulated a scope of work. So I assume we already have that. We target that case study for which all of you are going to get credit as authors for it. So along with the executive summary, the case study which sits there. Then in terms of outcomes, as agreed by ITPM Secretary General, they agreed to host the database for biodiversity across the country. So for which I think we have about 8 states present, they can be the harbinger for that note. First their states take it there back and produce that data set. So for which I think we need to jointly work as one outcome together. Second is in terms of knowledge share.
Database for what?
Biodiversity, in terms of various aspects related to biodiversity. One central unit where we have all database kept in, in custody with one institution. So all of us, like multiple institutions are, having databases with them. So we keep it in one particular place where it is updated with the help of various institutions. Of course, WWF being the pioneer in it, and across the database they have in the country that could be utilized, whatever is possible with you, then others as well. There are multiple other institutions, so all of them bring data set at one place. Because data is a powerful tool, we are unable to use it, and going ahead, AI is a reality. So how do we kind of combine both of them and not let AI sit on our heads, but we be a little ahead of it? So ultimately, people like us who are writing it. So what do we do with that data set? And for planners, it is data which is most important. Not only are we dealing with analytics of data, we are also looking at implementation of that. And another point which came recurring was enforcement. Now, many of us may not be a part of the enforcement, but what can spatial planners do? So how do we guide that further? Should be one of the outcomes that I think we should take as a key takeaway from this, because many of the practitioners, experts are feeling pressured because of the enforcement issues. I think we need to communicate that properly. As a group of planners and people working in the biodiversity field. So together, when we come together, it should be something powerful that we put across to whosoever is in the position of taking a decision. So we should state that emphatically. So one outcome was data-centric knowledge sharing and updation. The second outcome, we could look at it is in terms of knowledge sharing and capacity building. So specifically for the young budding planners, now 4 of us have here given an outcome in terms of what you all have shared, but how do we take it further? What are the actions that are required? What are the after these 3 days workshop? What are we going to do? So that's the ideation we need to do today. And take your inputs that what could be the conclusion from these challenges that we have discussed. Most of the things, like all of you said, is well known about. There are a lot of solutions also. How do we take it forward? So in that, what action is required, say for next 3 months or maybe next 6 months or a year. So short term to long term, giving a long state to this program and how do we take it forward. And in that, if any capacity building is required, knowledge sharing is required. You already did a lot of sharing in terms of best practices. So where do we go ahead? And giving your own state's specific challenges to go ahead, or how do we need to take it forward? Utilizing ITPI as a base because they have presence across all states in the country and union territory. So how do we push it along with WWF and other like-minded institutions and give it, a wrap-up to this session. So I think I'll stop here and I request Dr. Vora to conduct the further session in terms of how do we see this workshop, the light of the day with outcomes and outputs and how do we merge it beyond this. So any other thoughts from any of you? Yeah.
I think one point which young planners also missed while they were talking about, and I think when the Chief Town Planner of Uttarakhand, when he spoke, Government of India gives to the state, if you are working on environmental aspects in an urban area. He talked about the fact that if you're making an urban forest, they will give you 5 crores or 10 crores or something like that, right? So that is a very big incentive for the planners and also to the political and bureaucrats, all the people that okay, if we were to so like what I said yesterday, we have to spin the argument differently, and if we say okay, we are converting this to an urban forest, not a park, right? Then we will get X crores from the central government, and money is a big motivator for everybody. So I think that is something which he highlighted yesterday in his talk, and we need to really take stock of that.
Thank you, Shiv. That's a very important point he said. In fact, our note has... Yeah.
This point, when we were discussing our case study, the CTP also mentioned that they get 15 crore if you will notify any urban forest within an area. This point has been highlighted. And one more point which I feel is left is regarding the land value. See, we have all the problems which we are facing is because of the land value is not regulated. Although land is a state subject, but there should be some provisions which notify that the land value has to be regulated, because we all know that circle rates and market rates are totally different. The governments have legislation regarding the circle rates, but they are not being followed very religiously. So if this land value thing is regulated, then most of our problems will be solved, because people will sell the land on a certain rate and वो खरीदने के लिए ज़्यादा कुछ monetary इतना benefit नहीं होगा, तो थोड़ा सा sale purchase पे control होगा. That is one aspect which can also be looked into, which can be added to this.
That's a very good point actually. Data sets most of the ULBs do not have. With respect to valuation, land value, they do not have that data present. The price information, even in real estate, they do not have that kind of information. So that's another point where I think ITPI can come in handy and look at collation of that data sets. Most of the ULBs do not have. In fact, when I was doing work in the area of metro rail, and I was trying to capture what kind of sale has happened along the metro corridors or even for TODs. They don't have that data sets. In fact, you are running behind property dealers to know what is the trend in terms of data set. And without a trend, you are really not able to do any sensible forecasting or even valuation. So it's a very important point that you've added. And financial aspects, I think spatial planners should not just get stuck with physical planning bit of it, but also how physical planning is applied on spatial planning. Again, to what Shiv mentioned and to what Sanika mentioned, financial plan is very important. Neguji, you want to say something?
Yeah, quite eagerly waiting for the future strategies to our problems. I would just like to put in a few words. I think with all these discussions of trying to integrate biodiversity into spatial planning, the master plans are getting under a lot of pressure, trying to incorporate all these things, which I believe it may not be able to. So, one effective thing I believe that there should be thematic planning also, which is a whole lot of missing in our plans. If we look at foreign countries, developed countries, thematic planning is a very key aspect of planning. So it's like a spatial planner who is preparing the master plan may not be an environmental expert. And many of these situations, issues we have discussed, it basically deals with environment science. So that is a different kind of thing, and even climate science is a different kind of thing. We may not be really up to date about it. So for that, we need experts who prepare their own thematic plans, and that can be used by preparing the spatial plan so that that job is safe for us. If we are trying to take in all these things and trying to prepare a plan, it will get to nowhere. And the second thing what I have observed, even in our status, master plans are always subjected to so much litigation. You just publish a plan, there is a lot of cases coming behind it. And one of the key things, when we say anything about the environment, even the courts, they ask us, what is your expertise in that? So, which means that the environmental sector is wholly not in the picture. And the spatial planners are on the forefront of defending all these arguments, which is kind of a very difficult thing which we are facing in our state all this while. So I think that is one thing. And another thing is, like we were mentioned, during our field visit and everything, it was kind of brought out that the central government is very interested in environmental matters and spending a lot of money. So I think apart from that, actually if there is some mandates for the state to prepare even basic environmental aspects like floodplain mapping and biodiversity corridors, if there is a mandate from central government, I think that will be more, it may more convert into actual work. Rather than working from bottom up, it's something from top down will actually do some effort, and like the central government acts have more power. So in that way, the government intervention may do a lot more good, and that can couple with what Sir had said that like if you prepare this particular spatial, thematic plan about floodplains, you'll get so much money. Definitely there will be a great deal of interest in preparing that. So these are just some of the points I wanted to.
Adding to what Nigel was mentioning, after the 2018, generally what all the town and country planning acts in Kerala is basically for the urban area and for the rural also sometimes. But it's all for a comprehensive plan, like it's mentioned. So after the 2018 first, we understood that it's not only with respect to the whole lot of stuff being studied and all that. So we actually, the act has been amended and we have incorporated a new, rather than the whole state perspective plan, the district plan, the master plan and the detailed town planning schemes, we have already introduced a new provision for special area plans. So the Act actually has a statutory provision for preparing special area plans. Special area plans can be for a smaller area, for a larger area. It can be for so many local bodies or for a region for thematic plans. For the thematic plans, it can be for the heritage, it can be for the biodiversity, it can be for the... So it doesn't have to go through the whole exercise of the planning process which we do from the socio-economic planning, socio-cultural planning and urban infrastructure. We can be for some aspects wherein we can make it fast, put in experts for that and then we can prepare it. So for that, the Act has the provision. We have the Act has been notified and it is in place. When we are talking about our state, we have talked about the Baba Manimal region, where we are thinking about making a regional plan on a thematic aspect, not only with respect to biodiversity, with respect to risk and hazard, with respect to that. The rules with respect to how that has to be prepared, we have prepared a draft because there's a lot of inputs has to go into that, because the whole process, local bodies are being empowered for doing the whole process, but here the government should have an upper hand, even if the local bodies are not willing to take up that. So once the Act is empowered, we can do that. The Disaster Management Act is so much empowered to, and also the Environmental Protection Act. So these are the key acts through which earlier we are discussing when we are delineating the area, then we can also include the corridors for that. You all know the Garfield report has come out, there's a lot of problems with respect to that. But we are actually, the Garfield report would have been implemented a long time back, then this much of vulnerability would be there in our state. So these are the things which people realize to a certain extent. The information dissemination is very, very, very important, and between departments, we are all, I have already been discussing earlier also, we are all working in silos. Myself, when we are talking with a forest guy, I understand the problems with respect to the forest guy.
We have other landowners, so that can be the solution, and government has land pooling in that way also.
You know, I think these discussions you can have over coffee break, otherwise we will completely run out of time to do anything today. So, because these are individual, queries that you have, I would suggest that keep them for the evening. But if there's a more general comment for the group, let's have those.
See, I just want to tell you that we in Madhya Pradesh have got a clear rules that is their college, Madhya Pradesh Transfer Development Rights. We can take any land for purpose of developing as a green area, and we can give them a green TDR also for that purposes. So yes, we do have that rules in place.
So that green TDR can be a generic rule that can be applied everywhere. It's a very good suggestion.
Because otherwise, again, a long report, they may read that later, but in the meantime, we want to try and get this executive note. We also heard this idea about a database to be developed. That's again a long-term idea. And then this whole idea of financial incentives. Maybe as part of the case studies, maybe we can include some cases around the kinds of financial incentives that could be used, because that is what will spark the interest, especially also of decision makers. So these were just some ideas on the way forward. Let me go further and then we can take our feedback on all of it. So talking about the executive note, I tried to think of a format of what should go into that note. And this was the idea. One is, the note should have 3 clear sections. First is the rationale and the why. Make the case. Okay, this is not only about we like to have wildlife moving around, etc., etc. We need to make a really strong case in that first section as to why it is important to integrate ecology, environment, biodiversity into the planning process. So that's one section. It doesn't need to be very long. It needs to be about half a page to a page max, but it should really make the case very strongly. So that whenever a decision maker opens it and reads it, it hits him to say, oh, this is something that is critically important and needs to be integrated. So make the case. Then a little section on what are these areas that we're talking about. When we talk about environment, biodiversity, etc., what are we talking about? We're talking about forests, rivers, wetlands, geology. Are we also talking about architecture, culture and livelihoods? I've added that. I didn't hear that from your discussion. But maybe we also need to think about, in addition to the ecological and biophysical issues, we also need to bring in issues of culture, values, aesthetics, etc. into the planning process. You all may or may not agree, but I've just thrown it in there. And then, of course, a little bit of a section on how. How would this be done? We need better research, planning, etc. This will flow into the next section, which is what we need to work on today. Now, is this idea of if we know what needs to be done, we know why we need to do it, we have some idea of the mechanism of how, what are the gaps, why is it not happening, right? And so those are your gaps that you'll have been discussing over the last couple of days. And in the solution section, I just put a few things that I heard from the table just now. This is the part that we need to fill out. So as a group, what we need to try and do is, first of all, agree on those gaps. Have they captured everything? Is there something missing? Is there some overlap? And then we can work one by one on each of those sections and fill that out, and we can then convert this into an executive document, which basically has 3 or 4 pages: the rationale, importance, what are we talking about, how do we do the integration, and some suggestions from this group to say how can we overcome some of the major challenges that we face in the execution of this. Does this make sense as a way forward? Then we focus on this table. First we look at the left hand side, make sure that we've captured all the challenges, and then we can populate the right hand side to make sure that everybody's ideas and suggestions are captured, and then we will go away and clean it up. So don't worry about if it's not looking very clean, or if it's not, clear sentences and all, don't worry about that. That will all be done.
This will be emailed to us. It's super crisp.
Yeah.
It will be emailed to us.
Yeah. So once we finish this session here, we'll just clean up the typos and all that, and then we'll send it back to you. You can look at it again fresh, add new thoughts, because again, an hour and a half is not enough. When you go back and you reflect, you'll get new ideas and all that. So definitely we'll give ourselves some time. But let's not spend too much time and delay. My experience in WWF in all these years is we are great at doing workshops. We are very bad at the follow-up and the reporting. So I really want for this meeting to make sure that within 10 days max, we have at least this output. The longer output can come after 1 month, 2 months, whatever. But if we can get this executive summary out in time, then all of you can use it in different ways, right? However you want to use it, and we can also use it in different ways. So let's try for that. So when we send it back to you, we'll give you a quick turnaround. We'll say within a week, get back to us. Right?
And along with this, we also need the scope of work to be filled. Kerala has done it nicely. If you need to, anybody of you need to improve, for all of you, please send us the scope of work. Otherwise, those case studies we will not be able to make a turnaround with. So that also I'd request if in the next week you all can target to give to us, all the states.
Those are gaps. Then we'll talk about solutions. So the information sharing, the information gaps, the updating of processes is one challenge. The whole issue of spatial planning being very narrow. We need to broaden the concept of spatial planning. That's another challenge. The issue of capacity and awareness, that she brought up the issue of awareness, but also capacity. Do we have the right expertise in terms of people who are doing, do we have enough capacity in the departments? And one of the things again that I've heard is that there isn't enough capacity or expertise, not enough trained planners, not enough people. So that is one issue. Coordination we talked about, and this, as I said, came up again and again. Lack of coordination, working in silos, no common understanding. Then the regulation, policies and legal framework. This is of course the big one, right? Even if you have a plan and you have the best possible plan, if you are not able to actually have the right policies and the legal framework to take it forward, then your plan is just going to remain on paper. Then of course, kind of linked to that is the issue of enforcement and monitoring. So even if you have a regulatory framework and you have the policies, are you able to actually enforce it? And that is kind of linked to the last point, which is the political will. Because often the enforcement is linked to the political will or lack of it or whatever. So these 3 points are kind of interlinked, but I've separated them because the solutions might be slightly different for each one. If they merge in the end, we can merge it also, it doesn't matter. But right now we've just looked at these 8 things as the main challenges. Are we missing something?
Just one doubt. Like we are working towards one great vision of integrated planning for biodiversity and sustainable development. But that's a very broad topic actually. So shouldn't we have actually objectives to which all these things contribute to? Because these objectives can be different actually. It can be purely related to biodiversity, purely sustainable development.
We'll take about 10 minutes after this just to explain to you about the afternoon so that you know what to expect. But what would you like to see as, so report will come, executive summary will come, maybe some case studies and all that, but as a group, what would you like, what is your, if you had to give one single recommendation to WWF, what would you like us, who is noting this? Somebody, okay, you're recording it, okay. State level workshop, what do other people think? Would that, but then what we should do, if we do a state level workshop, we should do this coordination thing. So bring in multiple departments, right? No, yeah, that would be good. Okay. And then set up, maybe the state, sorry, I'm just thinking, maybe the state level workshops can then give rise to a mechanism at the state level which says, oh, this was a great thing to do, let's make it permanent, let's meet, yeah.
Ma'am, at Center, DOPT is implementing a mission Karmyogi, which is a capacity building project for all government officials. So abhi to center mein hai, but it has been started to roll on for states and for other departments as well. And probably the learning courses. There are interactive learning courses for government officials. So a course probably on topic like this and prepared or brought upon that iGot platform. That could be a good starting point because all government officials sooner or later will be able to access those courses free of cost from there. So that's very low hanging fruit which can have a major...
They are virtual?
Yes, online courses.
Do people attend?
Yes.
They do?
Under the mission now, there are capacity building plans and there are certain courses which are made mandatory for the officials to attend through ISTM, other training institutes and by ministries as well. So it is being taken in a very serious mode at center level right now. But once on that, it will be accessible to very wide range of administrators. So
that we could design something which is very relevant and topical.
Yes, videographic, interactive courses which have MCQs in between. So if there is a material available, we can handhold and take it forward.
So we are just doing a quick round of what next? How, apart from the reports and all that. So one idea was to do state level workshops. The other is to create and design a training module around that, and of course maybe with I think it will have to be done with the government so that it can be made mandatory, because if it's not made mandatory then I don't know who will spend a lot of effort.
Once the course is there will be different ministries जिसके लिए courses would be relevant. Environment, forest के लिए तो होगा ही, अगर spatial planning के context में है तो उसमें महुआ का रोल आ जाएगा, अगर आप इसको रूरल के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में कर रहे हो तो मतलब there is central bodies there, Capacity Building Commission and Karmyogi Bharat, which are implementing this project, this mission. So with them, it can be taken at a large scale for implementation.
So that could be done. What we require for that, irrespective of whether it is done by a private agency or done, it is for government officers. So their specific roles, and for what are we looking at in their, be it for policy or be it for any other aspect, or if we are looking at a section officer. So what is it that he should know in terms of preparing a note? So something like that which is across levels. We can also look at a course which is for a secretary level officer. So anybody who is joining the department new, what is it that they should know? So that is one basic level. And if it is a level above, you are looking at an intermediate or an advanced, that can be looked at a combination of online and offline course as well. So you can recommend that. It's not restrictive in that manner, but as long as it is impactful and at a large scale, that can be taken down to the states as well. So it's not that iGot is available to all officers who have an NIC password. These courses are largely free unless or until it's like Coursera or any other organization which is providing courses. So you also have Coursera courses or any other online platform which is providing courses which are available over there. So few are paid. Most of them are non-paid and very targeted courses. Which are specifically linked to skill development. So we can do that.
Madam, actually,
on a longer perspective, we should think about children, educating children and then getting them on the mainstream. Over a period of time, they understand.
No, but why do you think this is not happening? All
It is
children
happening
are
actually.
exposed. I mean, as WWF also, we have a very large environment education program. So we
So in the schools, I am talking about in the schools and other areas where there are things happening, but this also can facilitate actually. How we can do it, how we can change it.
I think bringing it back to the spatial planning form, our young planners really require. So we were just ideating as to what is a young planner, maybe anything less than 30 years, so or a youth rather, something like that. So for each target age group, we could look at specific interventions, because amongst us also, the planners need to be sensitized about this, so that they could introduce it as a part of their development process or in their spatial plans, etc. I think his point is addressing that. He's talking more on the kids, but I think I will speak more for the youth and the young people who are going to be taking it forward. So something for them, if can be addressed as well. Along with ITPI, I think we can do something around that as well.
On the sir's point, environment education is there in the schools, but environment as a career is not told to a lot of kids.
You know that WWF is running a series, I don't know if you've seen it, we are running a series with Hindustan Times. Every week we are taking an environmental person and talking about environmental careers. So all kinds of environmental careers, whether you're a cartoonist or whether you're a lawyer or whether you're a planner or whatever. We've been running this now for almost a year, which is basically talking about how a career in environment, how diverse it is. Because people think of environment and think, oh, you have to be a scientist or you have to be, it's actually not true. So you can integrate environment into your, job or your life or your lifestyle or your livelihood in so many different ways. So we are doing that. There's only so many things we can do. But yes, this idea of, environment being integrated rather than being seen as a separate thing. Even in the curriculum now, the way we are working is we are looking at how environment can be integrated into all the subjects. Rather than what we used to have when I was growing up was environment was a separate subject. And everybody avoided it and everybody bumped that class and nobody came for it, etc. But now integrating it into all the subjects means that we can't escape. So we have to keep moving the bar on that because that's the only way. But I feel that where I feel to some extent there is a lot more information out there and they're a lot more aware because of social media and all that. But on the other hand, they're also a lot more moving into a consumerist lifestyle. So both of those things are happening. On the one hand, you're more aware. On the other hand, you're not actually changing your lifestyle as a result of that. So how do we go from awareness to behavior change? That is the challenge right now with this whole thing is how do you, and I think careers is one thing, is if you take it up as a career, then you're able. I have to stop now, otherwise we're going to
One thing I just missed last one.
Yeah.
ESG will have impacts on planning, even when you're doing auditing and you're doing all those carbon credit and other things. So I mean, what I'm saying is that some aspects of ESG could be brought in as a word ESG because that is a very big motivator for.
I'll just put it here, I'm not sure.
It's a big motivator for all the officials कि ESG compliance हमारी हो रही है.
हाँ मगर वो planning में नहीं होता है. It's more around corporate and.
No. Now government also they have to do work on ESG. It's like.
It's got to do more with reducing the temperatures to 1.5 degrees and how are you aligning with that. So that spatial planning.
It's that climate smart planning.
Climate smart planning. And along that the ESG will become
I mean ESG is now the buzzword.
Anyway, I have put it. My worry is if you make this document into trying to put all the buzzwords into it, you will lose the focus. I would like to have an executive summary which is clear, crisp, concise and very focused on actions. Right? So let's keep it that way and then we can see how we can frame it. So we can put the ESG stuff and all in the rationale.
Yeah.
It can come into the rationale to say why this is needed because you don't have a choice. Right? So yeah, we can add that to the rationale. Okay, I'm going to wrap up. Do you want to do a formal closing or shall I just do my quick 10-minute intro to where we are going? I will need somebody to don't ask how and why, there's a historical reason. The owner inherited this forest from his grandfather. His grandfather got the forest from the British in lieu of some money that was owed to them. He was a logging contractor or a timber contractor, उसमें कुछ some खिचड़ी. But because the guy went bankrupt, he actually gave this Lala 900 acres of forest. Okay, in lieu of whatever, and that was then divided up between the 3 sons. So each son got 300 acres each. And today, the son of the son, who lives in Bombay, is owner of 300 acres of forest in Mussoorie.